Chapter 76. At that moment, Fu Yun Rua's feelings were complicated, and finally turned into a thick awkwardness. Fortunately, at that moment, whether it was when one or Siyu, neither noticed her expression. The little guy's performance has been very good recently. Even teacher Su praised the child. Siyu's voice contained a smile. He reached out and touched Wenwen's head. You deserve a reward. Wenwen's tail was about to reach the sky. He asked reservedly, what reward? A pair of big round eyes sparkled as he looked at Siyu. What reward do you want? He could actually choose by himself? Wenwen was very happy. He seriously thought for a moment. He couldn't think of anything for a while. So he said, I'm fine with anything. Then I'll have to think about it carefully. When the time comes, I'll give our one a surprise. Wenwen nodded again and again, smiling so widely that one could see his teeth and not his eyes. Fu Yun Rua looked at the interaction of their family, her expression inexplicable. How blind was she in the past to not see it? Siyu's attitude towards Wenwen, and the way the two usually interacted, was no different from a biological father and son. Fu Yun Rua controlled the urge to pull Wenwen to her side and let them keep a distance. She looked at Siyu and said politely, Thank you, Mr. Yu. She tried hard to pretend to have a normal attitude, but even she herself didn't realize how stiff her smile was. I won't trouble you starting tomorrow. I've already recuperated. I'll continue to send Wenwen to and from school. Wenwen noticed that Fu Yun Rua rarely coughed or sneezed these 2 days. He was very happy. His mother recovered. She didn't have to suffer anymore. Mom, you have to be more careful in the future. You can't tire yourself out, otherwise, all of us will be very worried. During this period of time, their mother was sick, and they were also very sad. Especially Wenwen. He wished he could take her place. He was really too worried. Every day when he went to school, he still had to worry about whether his mother was obediently recuperating at home. Got it. Fu Yun laughed. I'll be more careful in the future. The little fellow lectured seriously. Fu Yun Rua and the little housekeeper, Wenwen, repeatedly promised. They inadvertently raised their heads and saw Siyu smiling at them. Fu Yun Rua was slightly stunned, then awkwardly looked away and stared to the side. I've really troubled you during this period of time. If you need my help in the future, I will definitely help. Fu Yun wanted to repay this kindness, but she couldn't think of a way to do so. If they were to treat each other to a meal or something, there would be more conflict between them, and Fu Yun would feel even more uncomfortable. Of course, when one is Fu Yun Rua's heart suddenly rose high. She's my good friend, isn't she? Siyu smiled. Good friends should help each other out. Why, you're right. By the way, I was just about to tell you something. Siyu changed the topic. Yuan Xian came to me during the day and said that he has a movie and hopes that Wenwen will also act in it. Do you want to consider it? Movie? Fu Yun Rua was stunned for a moment before she reacted. Wenwen had told her that he liked to act and had even signed a contract with Apple Entertainment. Although he was free and could act if he wanted to or not, there would still be resources coming to him. After Wenwen finished filming that variety show, he didn't come into contact with the entertainment industry anymore. Brother Yuan also didn't come looking for her because of this matter. She almost forgot about this matter. On second thought, Fu Yun Rua felt that it was very normal. Previously, Wenwen was in a remote mountain village, and it wasn't easy for him to come out. Fu Yun Rua would also be worried that he would go out to film at such a young age. Brother Yuan knew that she wouldn't agree, so he didn't even ask. However, now that they were in the capital, it would be very convenient for them to film and accept advertisements in the future. However, was it good for Wenwen to film at such a young age? Fu Yun Rua was conflicted for a long time, but Wenwen was very happy to hear this. He clung to Siyu's leg and looked up excitedly to ask, What movie is it? Uncle Yu, will you act in it too? Of course, I'm the male lead. To be specific, this was a group movie, a sci-fi movie about heroism. However, he had the most scenes and could be considered the main male lead. I want to act. I want to act. Wenwen immediately said excitedly. Acting in a movie with his idol was too exhilarating. To have this opportunity was simply a miracle for him. Wenwen was so happy that he couldn't help but jump. I want to act. Then he asked curiously, What movie is it? In order to imitate Siyu, Wenwen had learned his acting skills. He was already familiar with all the movies he had acted in and his experience in the entertainment industry. If he remembered correctly, Siyu had already announced his withdrawal from the entertainment industry at this time. The sudden withdrawal of a giant who stood at the peak of the entertainment industry caused a huge wave for almost a year before it subsided. From this year onwards, he had not acted in any movies or television dramas. Wenwen didn't know which movie it was at this time. The development of this life and his previous life were completely different. At the same time, Siyu still had not announced his withdrawal from the entertainment industry and would even continue to act in movies. Could it be that Uncle Yu didn't withdraw from the entertainment industry because he wanted to continue to protect him? Wenwen couldn't help but hold his face. Although this guess might be wishful thinking, if it was true, he was so happy. Fu Yunruo was a little hesitant. Seeing Wenwen so happy and his entire face glowing, she couldn't bear to disappoint him, so she asked, "What movie is it? Will it be very difficult to film? Will there be many scenes? How will it affect Wenwen?" "I've seen it. The overall situation is quite good. Later, I'll get you on Xin to send the script over for you to take a look. There's a child character in the movie that is very compatible with Wenwen. If the movie is a hit, Wenwen's popularity will probably be world famous. A script that could be approved by CU probably wouldn't be too bad. But if that was the case, wouldn't Wenwen's starting point be too high? Was it a good thing or a bad thing?" Fu Yunruo felt that she was in a difficult position. This matter had a huge impact on Wenwen's life. She was afraid that if she didn't make a good decision, Wenwen would go down the wrong path. Wenwen saw Fu Yunruo's hesitation and thought that she didn't want him to act in the movie. He was disappointed, but he still said sensibly, "Mom, if you don't think it's good, then I won't go." There would be more opportunities to act in the movie in the future. He didn't want his mother to be unhappy. Fu Yunruo saw this and couldn't bear to make him sad. She said, "Wait for your Uncle Yuan to bring the script over. After we see that there are no problems, we'll accept it." Wenwen was about to cheer when Fu Yunruo said, "But we have to agree on 3 things first. We can't affect your studies." Wenwen patted her chest and promised, "No, I'll study hard." Siyu also said, "Don't worry, I'll watch over him. Wenwen's scenes will be filmed during the holidays. Just treat it as going out to play during the holidays." Fu Yunruo, whose child would be so high class on the weekends, going to film a movie for fun? However, Fu Yunruo didn't say anything. Even though she knew that Siyu was Wenwen's biological father, she didn't know how to face this fact. In the end, she would rather be an ostrich and pretend that this matter didn't exist. She really didn't know how to deal with this situation. The more she knew, the more conflicted she felt. She didn't want Siyu to reveal this matter. She didn't know what would happen if that happened. If only she hadn't accidentally heard about this matter. She could have thought that the child's father had already gone to heaven. The next day, Fu Yunruo personally sent Wenwen to kindergarten. Then, she went to the flower nursery. She hadn't been to the flower nursery for more than half a month. The flower nursery's business was on the right track. The daily income was considerable. Fu Yunruo finally didn't have to worry about owing the bank a loan. The flowers in the flower nursery were well taken care of by Uncle Gua. Moreover, the other employees in the flower nursery would help with some basic work. For example, Wei Wugua and Zhang Dongmei cherished this hard-won job very much. Whenever they had free time, they would learn some knowledge about flowers and help loosen the soil and water the flowers. Now, they basically recognized most of the flowers in the flower nursery. There were also the 2 newly recruited employees, Zhang Kuku and Liao Shouting, who quickly got the hang of it. They were all young girls. Their personalities were lively and cheerful. They matched well with the flowers and looked even more youthful and beautiful. It made people feel happy just by looking at them. Sister Wang also took care of the flower nursery in an orderly manner. Fu Yunruo saw that all of them were very capable, so she decided to promote them in advance. She even took the initiative to increase the benefits that they had originally agreed on. They were so easy to deal with and had helped them so much. Naturally, she had to repay them well. After not looking at it for half a month, the entire flower nursery had become much more beautiful. Many flowers were blooming one after another. The flowers swayed in the wind and were full of green. The vines meandered on the wooden shelves, and the white and purple flowers dotted the landscape. There was also a field of roses in full bloom. They were bright red like fire and were indescribably beautiful. Everywhere was pleasing to the eye. Fu Yunruo admired it for a moment, and her mood also improved. The scenery also attracted some tourists. Some people even specially came over to take photos. Some people posted the photos and videos on social media, and it even became popular. Because of this, there were also some wedding planners who specially contacted them to discuss cooperation. They wanted to rent this place as their store's outdoor wedding shoot location for a long time. Fu Yunruo felt that this was also a source of income, so she agreed. However, it could not be used too frequently. If the wedding planners were here all day long, it would also affect her side of the business. She left the rest to Sister Wang to discuss. Fu Yunruo looked at the scenery outside. The flower nursery took up a large area. Other than the private area that was enclosed, there was also a large area full of flowers. According to the popularity that was increasing day by day, she felt that this place would develop into a tourist attraction. Yuan Xin ran over to Huapu at 2:30 p.m. and brought the movie script that Siyu had mentioned yesterday. Fu Yunruo exchanged a few pleasantries and picked up the script to flip through it. Yuan Xin was very considerate. He had included all the scenes of Wenwen's character. It was especially eye-catching. She roughly looked at the story outline. From an audience's perspective, if there was such a movie, she would be happy to contribute movie tickets. The small role in this movie seemed to be tailor-made for Wenwen. She was also 3 or 4 years old and had many scenes. The character design was also very likable. When Yuan Xin saw that she had finished reading, he said, "You don't have to worry about any messy things happening in the production team. The company is also an investor." Fu Yunruo heard that Apple Entertainment was an investor and CU was the male lead. Wenwen could do whatever she wanted in the production team. But even so, she still had to follow the production team. "Oh yes, there's another program. See if you're interested." Yuan Xin took out another program invitation. "Do you still remember Director Peng?" Fu Yunruo nodded. Wasn't Director Peng the director of the variety show in the village? Chapter 77. Fu Yunruo didn't have much of an impression of Director Peng. His previous actions were normal, and there wasn't anything wrong with him. She didn't have much of an opinion of him since he didn't stand on Feng Shui's side. However, if she didn't like him, she didn't like him. Interactions between people also depended on whether their auras were compatible. According to the news from Xian Su, the show had finished filming after one more episode. Director Peng had gone to study other variety shows. Could it be that he wanted to invite them to a new variety show? Sure enough, Yuan Xian said, Director Peng is planning to film a variety show, and he wants to invite the children of famous celebrities to participate in the show. Director Peng had tasted the benefits of Wenwen and spent half a year planning to invite celebrities and their children to participate in the show. Wenwen's performance on the show and the netizens' attitude towards it made Director Peng want to invite Fu Yunruo or CU to bring Wenwen to participate in the show again. Yuan Xian could tell that the show was well planned. If nothing unexpected happened, it would become popular. If Wenwen participated in the show again, his popularity would instantly reach the A-list. Wenwen's popularity previously went to Fu Yunruo because he didn't have a separate social media account. However, after Wenwen participated in the movie, he could create an account for Wenwen and promote it in one fell swoop. From the standpoint of a manager, he hoped that Wenwen would participate. However, in his heart, Wenwen was still his nephew. After becoming popular, it would definitely bring some trouble. He hoped that Wenwen would have a relaxed and happy childhood. Yuan Xian was 100% confident that he could make Wenwen the youngest superstar. But now, he felt that Wenwen was still too young. He needed to slow down a little more. However, this still depended on Fu Yunruo's opinion. Fu Yunruo hesitated for a moment. Wenwen should focus on learning how to have fun. Even if she was going to act in a movie, Fu Yun only wanted Wenwen to participate in it with a playful attitude. She did not need to care about the so-called fame, as long as she was happy. Yuan Xian's attitude was genial. Hearing this, he nodded, indicating that he understood. Fu Yun heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that Brother Yuan was so easy to talk to. If that's the case, then I'll go and make some preparations. I'll contact you again after some time. When the time comes, Wenwen can directly join the cast. when one was still so young, so there was no need to prepare for the early stages of publicity at all. In fact, in order to avoid the heated discussion during this period of time, he even had to sign a confidentiality agreement. He only needed to finish filming his scenes. No matter if it was the early or later stages, he did not need to participate in any publicity. Fu Yun nodded. Yuan Xian did not stay for long. After he finished speaking, he quickly left the flower bed. However, the script was left in Fu Yun Ruo's hands. In the afternoon, she went to the kindergarten to pick up Wenwen. As soon as Wenwen sat in the car, she stared at Fu Yun with sparkling eyes. Fu Yun Ruo pretended not to understand what she meant and then asked her about her performance in the kindergarten. Wenwen answered patiently. Seeing that Fu Yun Ruo had no intention of mentioning it, he could not help but ask, "Mom, have you brought the script over?" Fu Yun Ruo nodded. "Yes, I've brought it over." "Then can I take a look at it now?" Wenwen could not wait. He really wanted to see what kind of exciting script it was right now. "You can only see it when you get home," Fu Yun Ruo said with a straight face. "All right." Wenwen thought that since his home was very close, it would be over in about 10 minutes. Hence, he happily swung his chubby little legs. Fu Yun Ruo saw that Wenwen was so happy and could not help but think about it. In the past, she saw that he liked acting so much. After all, in the original novel, his achievements in the entertainment industry were not low. He even had the title of Best Actor. Now that she thought about it, perhaps it was hereditary? See, you also liked acting and was so talented in acting. Wait, was the one in her previous life also Siyu's child? Fu Yun Ruo was a little confused. She had already forgotten what happened that night, but she still remembered that she had dodged. Could it be that whether it was her or the original body, they had both dodged the person with bad intentions in the end and then bumped into Siyu? Back then, she had written down all the plot of the original novel and kept it, afraid that she would forget it after a long time. Occasionally, she would recall it when she thought of it. After all, it still involved Wenwen. She remembered that in the original novel, the original body did not manage to leave in time. After being filmed, she was slandered and her reputation was completely ruined. If the person in the original novel was also Siyu, the book should have mentioned him. After all, his reputation was not lower than now. Furthermore, the original novel did not specifically mention that person's identity, but it also said that he was not a good person. Fu Yun Ruo felt a little dizzy. She was really not suitable for reasoning. "Mom?" Wenwen noticed that Fu Yun Ruo was in a daze and could not help but call out a few times. Fu Yun Ruo suddenly regained her senses. "Ah, Wenwen, what's the matter?" Wenwen blinked. "We're home." "Oh." Fu Yun Ruo nodded in a daze. So fast? They had reached home and were about to get out of the car. Fu Yun Ruo and Wenwen got out of the car one after the other. Wenwen pulled Fu Yun Ruo's hand and quickly ran into the house with her short legs. Mom. Wenwen sat on the sofa and her eyes lit up. Fu Yun Ruo shook her head. She took out the script that Yuan Xian had brought over from her bag and handed it to Wenwen. After Wenwen took it, she could not wait to flip it open and read it. Fu Yun Ruo laughed and said, "Can you understand it?" Wenwen was not convinced. "I know a lot of words." Fu Yun Ruo laughed. "Sometimes, even if you know a word by word, you might not know what it means when it is put together." She knew that her son was smart, but she did not think that he could understand much. However, she did not bother with him. She poured a glass of water and placed some fruits on the table. Then, she went to the kitchen to start cooking dinner. When Wenwen saw the contents of the script, she was stunned. Never would he have thought that Uncle Yu would choose the worst movie in history instead of the most classic movie in the future. This sci-fi film was still known more than 20 years later because it was always nominated when it was one of the worst films in the history of the movie industry. In the past, in order to make a living, he took on any roles that were available. Therefore, he had also acted in many bad television dramas and movies, although he was just an extra or a supporting role. Therefore, he had paid attention to these reviews. Because this movie would definitely be on the list of the worst and worst movies, he had a deep impression of it. If he remembered correctly, the male lead of this movie was not Uncle Yu, but another male star who had a good reputation in the industry. However, this movie was a little bumpy from the beginning. Although the officials had invested in it, it was as if it had been cursed. First, a few of the big leads got into trouble one after another. Then, the biggest investor lost his investment and went bankrupt. Even with the official involvement, under all kinds of circumstances, it could not save the movie's reputation. Even if the movie was successfully released in the end, because of the cheap special effects and because the actors were changed back and forth, the script was changed beyond recognition and the plot was very awkward. In the end, this sci-fi movie became the worst movie in history. If one did not see the name of the movie and the names of the characters in it, he would not have thought of that movie, although he did not really remember it. But if the original script was so interesting, how could it fail so badly that even its parents could not recognize it? When one saw his character, he remembered that the child at that time was a 7 or 8-year-old child. So the original script was for such a young child? When one thought uncertainly, if Uncle Yu acted in it, it shouldn't fail, right? The movies and television dramas he acted in had never failed, and that curse-like failure, when one was very worried that something would happen to Uncle Yu. When one jumped off the sofa and ran into the kitchen, he looked up and asked, "Mom, will Uncle Yuan come?" "No, why?" When Wen's little face was serious, he said seriously, "About the script, I want to talk to Uncle Yuan." Fu Yunrua could not help but laugh. Little brat, as expected, he did not understand. Thus, she said, "Mommy knows everything. I'll tell you more after dinner." Okay. When one walked back to the living room with his head down, he sat for a while and saw his mother's phone on the table. His eyes turned, then he unlocked it and made a call. He knew his mother's phone password. When one dialed Siyu's number, "Ruo," Siyu's deep voice came through. When one said, "Uncle Yu, it's me. Are you home?" When one, "I'm here. What's up? I'll come over to find you." When one hung up the phone, picked up a small stool and ran out with the movie script. He put the stool on the ground behind the door, stepped on it, and tiptoed to open the door. Then he jumped down, opened the door, and ran out. Siyu had already come out to pick up Wenwan. "Uncle Yu." Wenwan ran over. Siyu picked him up and threw him up a few times before catching him firmly. Wenwan was so happy that he laughed out loud. Siyu carried the baby back to his room and asked casually, "Why are you looking for me?" Wenwan pushed the script in front of Siyu. "Uncle Yu, are you sure you want to act in this movie?" "Yes, what's wrong?" Wenwan's voice was full of worry. "Who's the investor? What if the movie goes bankrupt before it's finished? Will it be able to support the movie? What if something bad happens to the other actors? Will it affect?" Siyu pressed his hand on Wen's head and rubbed it. "Who told you so much nonsense? You're so young. Be careful that you don't grow up to be tall." Wen pressed his hand on his head and widened his eyes. "Isn't that reasonable?" Siyu laughed. "If everyone thinks like you, then there's no need to film a TV series. High returns mean high risks. Every movie has to be prepared to bear all kinds of negative consequences. The worst-case scenario is that the movie can't be released, the millions of investment will go down the drain, the efforts of the staff will go to waste, and the actors will be affected." Siyu saw that Wenwan was listening with great interest and felt proud. He was indeed his son. He was so smart at such a young age. "What you said could happen, but—" He changed the topic. "This is not something that you should worry about. You just have to film it happily." To reassure him, Siyu said, "The biggest investor for this movie is Apple Entertainment. Are you relieved now?" If Apple Entertainment went bankrupt, the actors under the company's name would naturally be affected. At that point, no one would care about whether the movie could be made. Moreover, Apple Entertainment would not go bankrupt. It was that rich. When one heard that, Apple Entertainment had not invested in the movie in his previous life. It seemed that the company had invested in the movie because Uncle Yu had become the lead actor. Apple Entertainment was still standing at the top of the entertainment industry more than 20 years later. It would not go bankrupt. It was indeed different now. Then, this movie should have a different future, right? Fu Yun came out of the kitchen after cooking dinner. She scanned the living room but did not see Wenwan. She shouted a few times but did not see Wenwan appear. Qian Shengnan heard her and said, "Wenwan went next door to look for Mr. Siyu." Fu Yun was speechless. Chapter 78. In the end, Qian Xingnan went next door to pick up Wenwen. Fu Yunruo saw Wenwen jumping around happily. She suddenly wondered if Wenwen would be even happier if he knew that he was his biological father. Fu Yunruo's heart was heavy. She was even absent-minded when she ate. After listening to Siyu's analysis, Wenwen no longer had any worries and happily accepted the script. However, when he spoke to his mother was obviously distracted. He had already finished a full bowl of rice, but his mother still had half a bowl left. Wenwen couldn't help but ask with concern, "Mom, what's wrong?" Wenwen recalled that during this period of time, his mother would sometimes be in a daze, as if she was hiding something in her heart. He couldn't always be by his mother's side when he was in school. They only had time to interact on the nights of the holidays. During this time, he didn't know what his mother had encountered. Wenwen was extremely concerned. I'm fine." Fu Yunruo saw that his bowl was empty. "Are you full?" "I'm full." Wenwen rubbed his round belly. Then, when he saw Fu Yunruo put down her chopsticks, he immediately said, "Mom hasn't finished eating." Fu Yunruo looked down at her bowl. She really had no appetite, but under the little guy's bright gaze, Fu Yunruo still ate it all. Qian Shengnan was the one who cleaned up the dishes for dinner. Fu Yunruo washed a plate of fruit. Wenwen sat on the sofa and watched cartoons with relish. Fu Yunruo said, "Go take a shower in half an hour and then start doing your homework." Okay. Wenwen watched cartoons for half an hour and then went to take a shower. After going to kindergarten, Wenwen felt that he had grown up and wanted to bathe by himself. However, he was mercilessly suppressed by Fu Yun. She felt that a child like him could not bathe at all, especially when the weather was cold. If he did not pay attention, he would easily catch a cold. After taking a shower, Fu Yun helped Wenwen put on cute panda pajamas. The panda pajamas were for spring and autumn wear. It was moderately thick and had a hood. After putting it on, there were 2 fluffy ears on the top of Wenwen's head, which made Wenwen look even cuter. Wenwen began to do homework with Fu Yunruo. Most of the homework in kindergarten had to be completed with the help of parents. Although Wenwen felt that the homework was very childish, she enjoyed the process of completing it with her mother. Wenwen sat on a small chair and leaned over the small table. Fu Yunruo was teaching him how to do his homework. Fu Yunruo looked at the side of Wenwen's face. Her chubby baby fat bulged in an arc. It was so cute that it made people's hearts tremble. In the past, she felt that Wenwen had inherited all of her looks. However, looking at her now, she could not help but think about it. She felt that she could see some of Siyu's shadow. She heard that some children looked like their mother when they were young. However, as they grew older, they would slowly look like their father. Could it be that Wenwen was also in this situation? From her point of view, she naturally did not want Wenwen's blood relatives to compete with her. After all, their relationship was different from that of an ordinary husband and wife relationship. However, from Wenwen's point of view, a father was an irreplaceable and indispensable role. Although he had never mentioned this role since he could speak, as long as he was a child, he would yearn for it deep in his heart, right? If their relationship was made clear, what would happen when Siyu got married and had children in the future? Both Wenwen and her identity would become awkward. What would they do at that time? Fu Yunruo would rather Wenwen be from a single-parent family than bear the reputation of an illegitimate child. Fu Yunruo did not know what she should do. No matter what choice she made, it would be a difficult and heavy decision for her. Fu Yunruo looked at Wenwen. She hesitated for a while before asking tentatively, "Wenwen, do you like Uncle Yu a lot?" "I do." Wenwen nodded. Then, he looked up at Fu Yunruo. He wondered if his mother was jealous because he had been talking about Uncle Yu recently. Hence, he hugged Fu Yunruo. "I like Mommy the most." Fu Yunruo's lips curled up, but she quickly straightened her back. She wanted Wenwen to keep a distance from Siyu, but seeing how Wenwen relied on and liked Siyu, she could not bring herself to say it. If Wenwen asked why, she would not be able to find a reason. After all, Siyu did not do anything wrong. If she suddenly made this request, it would be unreasonable then. She asked tentatively, "Our baby is so smart. You should know that other children have parents. Wenwen also has a father. If your biological father appeared, would you accept him?" When Wenwen heard this, his soft eyebrows furrowed. He had a serious expression on his little face. His chubby little face puffed up even more. I don't need a father. Mommy is enough for me. Even if he appeared, I would not admit it. He would not admit that he had a relationship with a scumbag who cheated the feelings of an innocent girl. It did not exist. What if that person was the uncle you that you liked very much? Fu Yunruo opened her mouth, but in the end, she did not ask. She admitted that she was afraid that the future would change unforeseen things after this matter was revealed. Wenwen lowered his head and continued to do his homework, but his eyes were gloomy. Why did Mommy suddenly ask about this? Could it be related to the fact that she had been troubled recently? Could it be that they had come from a remote mountain village to settle down here and bumped into that man? That man had been pestering her recently? Wenwen's chubby little hand that was holding the pencil tightened. He did not show anything on his face. Instead, he picked up his homework book and showed it to Fu Yunruo. Mommy, I'm done. Fu Yunruo put aside her thoughts and praised. Wenwen is great. Let Mommy check. Yes, there are no mistakes at all. You're really smart. She praised Wenwen once, and Wenwen's little face was full of pride. He was so happy that he could see his teeth, but not his eyes. Wenwen said coquettishly, Mommy, can I go and play for a while? Fu Yunruo looked at the time and saw that it was still early before bedtime, so she allowed it. Wenwen cheered and then pulled Qian Shengnan up to the second floor. Fu Yunruo said from behind, Don't play until you're sweaty. There was Wenwen's exclusive entertainment room on the second floor. The floor of the entire room was covered with a clean carpet. They took off their shoes at the door. Basically, all of Wenwen's toys were on the carpet. There was also a little horse rocker that could sing. After he rode on it, the little horse would rock and sing, and the surroundings would sparkle. Wenwen noticed that his mother did not appear at the end of the corridor. His bright eyes darted around, and then he looked up and spoke sweetly to Qian Shengnan. Sister Shengnan, Wenwen, what's wrong? Qian Shengnan's voice was gentle. Has there been any strange people around Mommy in the past 2 days? Wenwen thought that Sister Shengnan was almost inseparable from Mommy. If there was anything strange around her, she would definitely know. She would be the best to ask her about the situation. Qian Shengnan thought for a moment, and then shook her head. No, Wenwen. Why do you ask? No? Could it be that he had guessed wrongly? Wenwen thought for a moment. Then, is the business of the flower nursery not good? Did someone come to cause trouble for Mommy? Wenwen sighed sadly. Mommy seems to be a little unhappy recently. Although Qian Shengnan was carefree, she also noticed that Fu Yunruo's mood was a little off these few days. She also asked about it, but she didn't get anything out of it. The business of the flower nursery is also very good. No one is causing trouble. Even if someone came to cause trouble, it would be a small problem. There was no need for Fu Yun to appear. The people in the flower nursery could handle it themselves. Sister Shengnan, then you have to help me pay more attention. Don't let strange people get close to Mommy. Qian Shengnan promised. Don't worry, I will protect your mother well. This was also her responsibility. Wenwen didn't get anything out of Qian Shengnan, but he wasn't discouraged. He didn't know this, but perhaps other people would know. If he asked a few more people, he would definitely be able to find out. Wenwen thought that when he was on vacation, he would definitely observe carefully. The next day, Wenwen ran out of the door to wait for school after breakfast. When she stood by the roadside, Siyu happened to be back from exercising. Wenwen waved her little hands. Uncle Yu. Wenwen. Siyu stopped in front of Wenwen. Wenwen looked up at Siyu and then whispered, Uncle Yu, lower your head. I have something to tell you. As Wenwen spoke, she turned her head to see if Fu Yunruo had come out. Siyu squatted down and leaned over cooperatively. Wenwen tiptoed and whispered, Uncle Yu, help me pay attention to whether there are strange men around Mommy. Siyu raised his eyebrows and looked at Wenwen. His chubby little face was very serious. Wenwen reminded him, if there are any, you have to tell me. He thought to himself that Uncle Yu was so reliable. If he saw Mommy being bullied, he would definitely help. Fu Yunruo walked out and saw Wenwen talking intimately with Siyu. Her expression froze, and then she walked over as if nothing had happened. What are you talking about? She pulled Wenwen over and held her hand. It's time to go to school. She tried hard not to look in Siyu's direction. The car stopped in front of them. Fu Fu Yun Ruo brought Wenwan into the car. Wenwan turned around. Uncle Yu, don't forget what I said. Yu stood up and nodded, but his gaze was on Fu Yun Ruo. Fu Yun Ruo avoided his gaze. The car quickly left. Fu Yun Ruo looked at Yu's image in the rearview mirror and then disappeared. She didn't ask Wenwan what they talked about. After sending her to the kindergarten and handing her over to the teacher, she went straight to the flower garden. She kept herself busy so that she wouldn't think about other things. Not long after, the employee, Guan Kiki, found her and said that someone was looking for her outside. Seeing Guan Kiki's complicated expression, Fu Yun Ruo asked, "Who is it?" "It's that Feng Shui Ruo." Very few young people nowadays didn't pay attention to the hot news. Last year, the news about the Fu family and Feng Shui Ruo was all over the place. Guan Kiki had heard a little about it, especially now that one of the parties involved had become her boss. She could also hear some gossip here. Therefore, Guan Kiki also knew about the dispute between them. She just felt that since their relationship was so bad that she could even steal someone else's fiancé, shouldn't she consciously avoid appearing in front of the victim and be as quiet as a chicken? Wasn't taking the initiative to come to her door again and again to show her presence poking at people's hearts? Even if she didn't mind, she still felt disgusted, right? This Best Actress Fong was really hard to explain. When Fu Yun Ruo heard this, she subconsciously frowned. Did she come here because she couldn't block her at the entrance of the villa district and couldn't enter? Fu Yun Ruo said, "Just say that I'm not here." Guan Kiki said with a bitter expression. She said that if you're not here, she will keep waiting until you appear. They were open for business. If Feng Shui stayed in their office and didn't leave, what if she bumped into customers and exposed her identity and caused chaos? Then, how could they continue doing business? Fu Yun Ruo obviously thought of this as well. She took off her gloves and walked out. She wanted to see what Feng Shui Ruo was up to. Chapter 79. Fu Yun Ruo went to the office. Feng Shui Ruo sat on the chair, and her manager, Ms. Wan, was there too. Guan Kuku was worried and followed them in. If there was a fight, she could help in time and prevent herself from being bullied. Fu Yun Ruo sat on the chair behind the desk. "Sister," Fu Yun Ruo interrupted her. "Don't call me that. It's disgusting." Feng Shui Ruo looked at her and said softly, "Uncle has always hoped that we can get along well." Fu Yun Ruo snorted and looked indifferent. "Don't talk nonsense. Let's get straight to the point." She looked at the time. "I'll only give you 5 minutes to tell me your purpose. After that, you don't have to make your presence known in front of me." Feng Shui Ruo looked at Ms. Wan. Ms. Wan nodded knowingly and turned to leave. When she passed by, she glanced at Guan Kuku and asked her to follow her out. Guan Kuku stood still and looked at Fu Yun Ruo. Fu Yun Ruo said, "You can leave too?" Guan Kuku went out worriedly. Only Fu Yun Ruo and Feng Shui Ruo were left in the office. Feng Shui Ruo said, "I know that you don't like me, but no matter what, you're still my sister in name. So, after I accidentally found out about something, I couldn't sleep and eat in peace. I felt that I had to tell you." Fu Yun Ruo didn't say anything and waited for her to get to the point. Yu is famous in the circle for not getting close to women. Back then, when we were in the countryside, he didn't care about the impact on your reputation and insisted on pestering you. I found it strange, but I didn't expect. So, Feng Shui Ruo stuttered. Fu Yun Ruo remained calm. "So he likes me?" She held her chin and sighed in distress. "I can't help it. I'm so likable. Some people who are hated can't help but be envious." Feng Shui Ruo choked, but her expression didn't change. "Sister, you must be joking. I only found out later that he was so nice to you, and Wenwan because he had ulterior motives. I know, Wenwan is too likable. There are a lot of people online who want to be Wen's stepfather. Is Mr. Yu one of them?" Feng Ruo, "Don't you want to know who bullied you at the hotel that day?" Fu Yun. She went straight to the point. So Feng Shui Ruo always wanted to talk to her because she wanted to talk to her. Was one Yu? Could it be that he wanted to sow discord between her and Yu? Her heart was as clear as a mirror. That night was an accident, and she couldn't say who was right and who was wrong. Although she was drugged and unconscious, to a man, It was normal for him to not be able to control himself when a beautiful girl threw herself into his arms. How could he blame others for taking advantage of her? At most, because of this incident, she realized that Siyu wasn't a gentleman and her impression of him dropped. After she found out that the man's identity was Siyu, she was worried that he would snatch the child away from her. She also felt awkward. It was as if she had accidentally slept with a friend of the opposite sex after getting drunk. They didn't have any feelings for each other other than friendship. Then, they had an intimate relationship, and they were neighbors who would see each other from time to time. Fu Yunruo didn't react. Feng Shui Ruo. When did Fu Yunruo become so good at infuriating people? After not seeing her for so many years, her personality had changed completely. She wasn't as brainless as she used to be and would explode at the slightest provocation. Or was she just pretending in the past, and this was her true nature? Fu Yunruo looked at the time and reminded her, "You still have 2 minutes." Feng Shui Ruo stroked her hair and looked at her disapprovingly. She said gently, "I know, because Brother Chong." She didn't finish her sentence. "That day at the hotel, your man was Siyu. He appeared beside you with ill intentions. He already knew that Wenwan was his son, so he deliberately approached you and nurtured his relationship with Wenwan. When the time is right, he will snatch Wenwan away from you. By then, even if you go to court, you won't be able to snatch Wenwan back." Feng Shui Ruo stared at Fu Yunruo, trying to see anger in her expression. However, Fu Yunruo's expression was calm, and she looked at her as if she was looking at a monkey. Fu Yunruo blinked and said lazily, "Why would I think that he bullied me? You're not the person involved. Can't I be lustful and sleep with him? After all, Mr. Yu is the dream lover of millions of girls." Fu Yunruo touched her chin. "Now that I think about it, I'm pretty good to be able to sleep with him. Or are you saying that you were watching me in the dark at that time?" Fu Yunruo smiled. "Tell me, if my good father knew that his good stepdaughter watched his biological daughter being taken away by a strange man, how would he feel?" Feng Shuiruo's complexion changed drastically. She was about to cry, with an expression of being wronged and hurt. Fu Yunruo said lightly, "There's no third person here. You don't have to act in front of me. To be honest, after reading for so many years, you've always been like this. I'm tired of it." She wasn't the original owner, who would lose her mind after being provoked. She suspected that the original owner was influenced by the plot of the book, which caused her to lose her mind. Or did you secretly record it or secretly broadcast it? Feng Shui Ruo forced a smile. "Sister, what are you talking about? It's best if you don't." Fu Yunruo didn't want her private affairs to be discussed by hundreds of millions of netizens again, pushing Wenwan to the forefront of the storm. Even if she took Fu Yunruo out of context, she wasn't afraid. There were surveillance cameras in her office. Fu Yunruo leaned back on the black chair. "As for you saying that he wants to snatch Wenwan, do you think you know him better, or I know him better?" Feng Shui Ruo's heart twisted. She felt that her trip here was a joke. Fu Yunruo looked at the time. 5 minutes are up. Take care. I won't see you out." Oh, as if she thought of something, she reminded her. "Wrap yourself up tightly when you go out." Feng Shui Ruo stood up. "Since sister knows, then I won't say any more. Goodbye." She put on her sunglasses and turned to leave. Her high heels made a crisp sound on the floor. Her face under the sunglasses couldn't hide the distortion. Fu Yunruo was really stubborn. She was getting more and more difficult to deal with. She didn't look surprised at all. In the past, she didn't seem to know anything. Or was it that she already knew and just pretended not to know to deceive them? Fu Yunruo was actually such a scheming person? Did Siyu know? Fu Yunruo wanted to use the child to climb up the social ladder? Feng Shui Ruo sat in the black limousine. Sister, when asked with concern, "How was it?" Feng Shui Ruo sounded disappointed. "I reminded her out of kindness, but I was ridiculed." Sister, when suddenly felt indignant. She really doesn't know what's good for her. She scolded for a while. Feng Shui Ruo frowned and interrupted her. "Okay, sister misunderstands me too much. It's normal that she doesn't believe me. Let's go." She looked tired. The limousine drove away silently. Feng Shui Ruo suddenly asked, "How's Siyu's schedule recently?" Sister Wen looked troubled. It's hard to find out his schedule. There were no secrets in the entertainment industry. It was easy to find out the schedule of many famous people, but it depended on the person. Siyu's schedule was within the range that couldn't be found out. Feng Shui Ruo looked at Sister Wen. Before tonight, I want to know his schedule. Do you understand? Sister Wen felt bitter in her heart, but she could only agree. Feng Shui Ruo nodded in satisfaction and said, "What about my schedule recently?" After the new year, the incident last year didn't affect her that much. Netizens were forgetful, and there was an endless stream of new news every day. Everyone gradually forgot about this incident. So recently, they started to contact some good resources. Speaking of this, Sister Wen felt even more troubled. Netizens were easily forgetful, but this incident left an impression in the hearts of many industry executives. It wasn't easy to erase the negative impression. Feng Shui Ruo's resources plummeted. It was better than before the new year, but it wasn't much better. She still only had resources from the Fu family, the Chang family, and the company. According to the information that she found out, Feng Shui Ruo had been blacklisted by many big brands. The company recently invested in a TV series. The cast is not small, and the company wants you to be the female lead. What she didn't say was that the company's other female lead was the second female lead in the TV series. Chapter 80. Fu Yun Ruo opened the office door and walked in. Fu Zonghong, who was looking at the murals on the wall with his hands behind his back, turned around when he heard the sound. Fu Yun Ruo's expression was cold. "What do you want?" Fu Zonghong's first reaction was to get angry, but he still remembered the purpose of his visit. He suppressed his anger and said, "Is this how you talk to your father? If you want to be filial, go look for your precious daughter. You're all grown up now, aren't you? You've been back in the capital for so long, but you haven't come home even once. Do you still see me as your father?" "Chairman Fu, you must be joking. I come home every day." As for the home he was talking about, was there still a place for her? "I'm here to inform you to bring Wenwen home. Let's see what you've taught Wenwen." Fu Zonghong was extremely displeased. Fu Yun Ruo frowned. "When did you look for Wenwen? You didn't say anything in front of Wenwen, did you? When did that happen? That little girl, Wenwen, didn't mention it to her? Uncle Gua and Shengnan wouldn't hide it from her. They probably didn't know. Was that the time when Siyu came back late to pick up Wenwen?" Fu Zonghong Ruo said unhappily, "You didn't bring the child back, but I can't bring him home? Wenwen is a child of the Fu family. I'm here today to inform you that if you want to make a scene, don't bring the child along. I'll bring Wenwen home and teach him personally." Fu Yun Ruo scoffed. The child's biological father hadn't jumped out to snatch the child away, but he was the first to do so. How shameless was he? Teach you? Raise him to be like you, who can't tell right from wrong, who's blind and blinded, and who's led by the nose by women. Fu Zonghong slammed the table hard. "What are you talking about? Did I say anything wrong?" Fu Yun Ruo wasn't afraid at all. She walked to the office chair and sat down with an indifferent expression. "I don't want to quarrel with you. Let's get straight to the point." Fu Yun Ruo signaled him to sit down. She calmly said, "In your heart, what kind of person am I? Stupid? Vicious? Narrow-minded? Your good wife and stepdaughter are kind and weak women who can only be bullied by me." Fu Zonghong snorted through his nostrils. He looked at Fu Yun and did not say anything. It was obvious that this was what he thought. Fu Yun was not disappointed. After so many years, his views were already deeply ingrained. "Do you still remember what I was like before you remarried? Was I against you remarrying from the beginning? Do you still remember the original intention of remarrying?" Fu Yun recalled what her father had said to her in her distant memories. "You said that you wanted to find someone to take good care of me. Because of what you said, I agreed in the end. Have you forgotten that I didn't object to your remarrying from the beginning? I didn't object to your remarrying. I objected to the mother and daughter. Why do you think that it's all my fault and not their fault? Ask yourself, do you really think that she took good care of me?" Fu Yunruo arched her eyebrows. "I'm the first wife's daughter. Ever since I was young, I've become the perfect foil for her daughter's gentleness, kindness, and purity. She's multi-talented. In your eyes in the circle, I'm labeled as vicious, violent, idiotic, and brainless. Look at how well she's taken care of me. Do you really not know anything? You're an old fox who can develop the Fu family so well and succeed in the business world. Are you really so muddle-headed when it comes to family matters? No, you know everything, right? Because your heart is already biased. In your heart, your wife is a gentle and understanding flower and a filial, considerate, and obedient stepdaughter. They are much more important than your biological daughter, so you let them be and pretended that you didn't know anything. After a day of work, you only want to see family harmony when you come home. They can make you relax and let you enjoy the happiness of being with your family, but I only know how to cry and make you upset. Fu Zonghong was furious. I'm biased? If I'm biased, why would I let you inherit the Fu Corporation? Fu Yunruo's gaze was clear. Yes, I'm still the only successor of the Fu Corporation. Most of the family assets are still mine. So what's wrong with me giving in to them? What's wrong with suffering a little to maintain family harmony? That's what you think deep down in your heart, right? Fu Zonghong suddenly stood up and the office chair that he pushed away made an ear-piercing sound. Fu Yunruo, Chairman Fu, don't be so angry. I still have a lot of things to say. Forget it. Fu Yunruo was uninterested. I've already said what I wanted to say. Last year's incident on the internet was known by the entire internet. You're the only one who kept your eyes closed and didn't want to expose it. With your ability, you can still find the video online. You can also read more of the netizens' analysis. I think it's quite interesting. She thought for a while and said, or maybe you've already seen it and just think that I'm slandering you. If that's the case, I have nothing to say. There was a saying that made sense. You can never wake up a person who pretends to be asleep. You don't have to think about hitting on Wenwan. His surname is Fu, but the Fu in my name is not the Fu in Fu Zonghong. It has nothing to do with the Fu family. I won't let Wenwan become the next me. If you want to hit on Wenwan again, don't blame me. Before Fu Yunruo could finish her words, the office door was suddenly pushed open. Uncle Guo walked in heavily and stared at Fu Zonghong with an unfriendly expression. You still want to hit on Wenwan? You're dreaming. If you dare to touch Wenwan, I'll fight you to the death. You're not even as old as me, but you're already dim-witted. Ruoruo is such a good daughter, yet you don't know how to cherish her. There are many people who want her to be their daughter and dote on her. Who do you think you are? If you dare to let your wife and daughter bully Ruoruo again, I'll beat all of you up. If a beating isn't enough, I'll beat you up every time I see you. Fu Yunruo was afraid that Uncle Guo's anger would affect his health, so she quickly stood up and walked over to calm him down. Uncle Guo, that's enough. With all of you protecting me, who would dare to bully me now? I've said everything that needs to be said. Let's go. Fu Yunruo supported Uncle Guo and was about to leave the office. Before leaving, she looked at Fu Zonghong. I've said all that I have to say. Chairman Fu, you're on your own now. Also, look after your precious daughter. Oh, and your precious wife. Don't let them always come in front of me. If you don't jump around in front of me, I don't know how good my life will be. She was annoyed whenever they jumped around. After Fu Yunruo finished speaking, she helped Uncle Guo out of the office, leaving Fu Zonghong alone in the office with a gloomy expression. Fu Yunruo returned to the flower shed and sighed faintly. She did not expect him to listen to her. She only hoped that he would appear in front of her less often. Uncle Guo still looked unhappy. If they dare to come in the future, call more people. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Okay. Next time, I'll call more people. Fu Yunruo coaxed. Uncle Guo still wanted to say something, but he remembered that he was her biological father. In the end, he snorted coldly and left with his hands behind his back. Fu Yunruo held her forehead and smiled helplessly. She did not stay in the flower shed for long before it was time to pick up Wenwan. Fu Yunruo and Qin Shengnan left the flower garden. At this time, Fu Zonghong had already left. He got the car to drive directly to the kindergarten and watched from afar as Fu Yunruo left happily after picking up Wenwan. He looked at the bright and innocent smile on Fu Yunruo's face and realized for the first time that she was not aggressive in front of others. He sat for a long time before instructing, "Let's go back." His voice sounded much more tired. When he returned to the Fu family, Fu Zonghong did not see Fong Wanting and went straight to the study. He sat in the study and slowly recalled how Fu Yunruo looked when she was young. As one looked too much like Fu Yunruo, when he thought of one, memories of Fu Yunruo when she was young slowly surfaced. At that time, Fu Yunruo was about the same age. She was very obedient and soft. Every day, he would go home early from work just to spend more time with his daughter. Fu Zonghong inadvertently looked at the desk. There were 2 photo frames on the right side. One was a photo of him, Fong Wanting, and his daughter. He remembered that the one on the desk was, suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Fong Wanting Ruo came in with a cup of hot tea. Old Gao said that you were back, so I came to take a look. Fong Wanting Ruo walked over and smiled at Wan. Fu Zonghong responded, I made a cup of black tea for you personally. Fong Wanting Ruo placed the teacup on his right side, and then stood behind him to massage his shoulders. What's wrong? You don't look very happy. Fu Zonghong's eyebrows slowly relaxed. When he heard that, he snorted coldly. It's all because of that rebellious girl. I put down my pride and personally invited her back, but she refused. Take it slow. As the saying goes, only when you raise a child do you realize your parents' kindness. Yunruo will understand you. By the way, where's the photo of Yunruo that I put here? He remembered that the photo on his desk was a photo of Yunruo when she was young. It had not been touched for many years. Fong Wanting Ruo's smile froze. Then, she rebuked. It's all because of you. You said that you would get angry when you see Yunruo. I was afraid that you would smash the photo frame, so I put it away. Okay, that was true. She left home without a word and did not leave any news. If he got angry, he might really smash the photo frame. However, at this moment, he suddenly remembered Fu Yunruo's harsh words. Ask yourself honestly, did she really take good care of me? At that time, Fu Zonghong was still young. There were many young ladies in the social circle who were interested in marrying him. Fu Zonghong's father had chosen Fong Wanting because she was docile and had no background. For the sake of his only daughter, he was unwilling to marry a young lady from an aristocratic family. He was afraid that she would suffer in the future. But when did it start to change? Ever since Yunruo kept crying and throwing tantrums at Mother Fong, telling them to get lost. She kept lying that they bullied her. However, Fong Wanting did not explain herself. She only apologized sadly. Later, he installed surveillance cameras. In the footage, Fong Wanting did take good care of her, but his daughter refused to accept it and kept throwing tantrums. Instead, she was the one who bullied Fong Shuiruo. He gradually became impatient. Every time Fong Wanting comforted him gently, he would get angrier and angrier at his daughter's immaturity. Later on, he would scold her. In the end, the father and daughter would quarrel whenever they saw each other. When did it start to change? Fu Zonghong's father looked at Fong Wanting. At that moment, his gaze was extremely unfamiliar. Mother Fong's heart skipped a beat. Old Fu. She took a closer look. His gaze was no different from usual. Did she see wrongly? Fu Zonghong patted her hand. You can leave first. I still have work to do. Okay, Fong Wanting responded. Then she turned around and left, closing the door considerately. She did not know why, but she felt uneasy. Chapter 81. After Fong Wanting left, Fu Zonghong did not go back to work. Instead, he remained silent for a moment before calling his assistant. Send me all the news about Yunruo and Shuiruo that was all over the internet last year. The other side seemed to be stunned for a moment before replying. Yes? Fu Zonghong hung up the phone with an inexplicable expression. Was he really wrong? He, who had never been interested in the entertainment industry, clumsily began to search for information about Fu Yun. Fu Zonghong felt as if he was meeting his daughter for the first time. After all these years, no one around him had ever said that she was a good person. Not many people her age were willing to be friends with her. Those negative comments really made him feel embarrassed. However, after leaving their circle, there were actually so many people who liked her. Fu Zonghong found her previous live broadcast videos. Did she have such a peaceful side to her? He only felt that it was strange. At night, His assistant sorted out the relevant information and sent it to Fu Zonghong. Those paragraphs of description were like heavy hammers hitting his head, making him feel dizzy. So all these years, she had always misunderstood? Impossible. How could Wan Ping and Shui Ruo do that under his watch? Had he been wrong all these years? He comforted himself. The news on the internet was a mess and all fake. How could they know the truth? However, in the end, there was still a crack in his heart. The next day, Fu Zonghong was resting at home. As he walked around the house, he suddenly remembered Fu Yun's words. Erase my traces. He could not help but pay attention to the traces in the house. He realized that he did not know when, but there was no trace of Yun Ruo's belongings in the house. And in his life, there were traces of him and Wan Ping everywhere. Fu Zonghong looked at a painting hanging on the wall by the stairs. Old Fu, what are you looking at? Fong Wanning looked up curiously from downstairs. Then he smiled and said, the flowers in the yard have bloomed. Do you want to come and take a look? Fu Zonghong was silent for a moment, then he walked down. If Fu Yun did not know anything about what had happened at the Fu family's old mansion, she would have a lot of things to do. There was a big business at the flower bed. As the customer was an insider, Fu Yun went to handle it personally. When it was time for the holidays, when Wan, who had already signed a contract with the crew, had to go to the set to film. This movie was a sci-fi film, and it was mainly done in post-production. Many scenes were completed in the studio, so they did not go to other cities to shoot exterior scenes. Fu Yun Ruo and Wan arrived at the set under the lead of Siyu and Yuan Xin. Because when Wan was the youngest actress in the crew, she became everyone's favorite. Everyone, from the main cast and director to the extras, liked her very much. Io, she's 100 times cuter in real life. So cute. I also want such a cute son. Wan, do you like biscuits? I made it myself. One way they expressed their love was to feed her with snacks. As long as Wan was on the set, he would not stop eating snacks and milk tea. Fu Yun Ruo felt that if he stayed any longer, his chubby little face would become even rounder. Fu Yun Ruo stayed at the side and watched Wan shoot her first scene. The surroundings were green screens, and the background would only be added in the post-production when the computer special effects were done. The actors filmed the so-called dangerous and exciting scenes seriously. It was quite comical and awkward to watch at such a scene, but the actors were very professional and did not laugh many times. In this set, Fu Yun Ruo saw many veteran actors. Because of Siyu as the male lead and the joint investment of Apple Entertainment and the official company, this set became a place where all the big and small actors in the industry would fight to get in. There were many choices, so naturally, they chose the best. When Wen's first scene was with the actor's mother. At the beginning, it was a parting of life and death. In the end, the child was entrusted to the male lead. Fu Yun Ruo saw that when Wen's acting was quite good. She could not tell if it was good or bad, but from the director's nod of approval, she could tell that he acted very well. Although he did not pass in one take, he was praised by so many people, which meant that he was very talented. Fu Yun Ruo thought that when Wan had really inherited someone's acting talent. After filming a scene, when Wan ran over with sparkling eyes, asking for praise. Mom, how was my acting? Fu Yun Ruo flattered. Wan is really amazing. You acted very well. It was great. Wan beamed and could not help but giggle. Siyu Ruo's eyebrows relaxed and his tone was full of pride. Wan is really amazing. After analyzing the scene with him, she could act so well. She was indeed like him. Not long after, the director walked over and kept praising. Wan is really smart. I have never seen such a smart child. In time, she will definitely be able to achieve Siyu's achievements. Originally, a 3 or 4-year-old child was at the age where they were ignorant and had a lot of questions. They might not even know much about words. The director initially wanted an 8 or 9-year-old child to act, but he did not expect Wan to give him such a big surprise. Fu Yun Ruo sounded humble, but she was very proud in her heart. Miss Fu, are you interested in making a cameo appearance? The director knew that Fu Yun Ruo's fame was not lower than that of an A-list actress. The director was very excited and felt that this was a very good idea. Fu Yun Ruo was stunned for a moment before she waved her hand and rejected. Thank you for your kindness. I don't know how to act, so I won't embarrass myself. It's very simple. You will be able to do it after a little teaching. The director felt that since Wenwan was so talented, Fuyun Ruo should not be too bad either. She would definitely be able to do it after a little teaching. Siyu said, if you're interested, you can give it a try. Fuyun Ruo shook her head. She did not want to develop in the entertainment industry, so there was no need for that. The director tried to persuade her, but when he saw that Fuyun Ruo did not change her mind, he was disappointed and could only give up regretfully. There were many things to do in the production team, so the director quickly got busy with other things. There was still one when Ruo's scenes, but it was not his turn yet. The mother and son sat on a small stool and watched the production team excitedly as they filmed. They only left at night. The filming location was not far from their house. They only needed to drive for 40 to 50 minutes. When Ruo was in high spirits the entire day filming and watching. When she got home, she was already sound asleep. After getting out of the car, Yuan Xian told them to rest early and to pick them up early the next morning. The car left immediately. Siyu carried Wen Ruo and walked into the house with Fuyun Ruo. Wen obediently lay on Siyu's shoulder and slept soundly. Fuyun Ruo asked Siyu to put Wen Ruo in the room to sleep and then left quietly. Thank you. Fuyun Ruo thanked her politely. Siyu did not seem to feel Fuyun Ruo's deliberate alienation and said casually, You're welcome. Then there was a moment of silence. After a while, Siyu looked at Fuyun Ruo and said, Let's talk. Talk? Talk about what? Chapter 82. What was there to talk about between them? Fuyun had a bad premonition in her heart. Just as she was about to find an excuse to avoid the talk, Siyu seemed to know what she was thinking and said directly, regarding Wenwan, I'm sure you already know that he... Fuyun quickly interrupted. Wait. She looked around vigilantly and guiltily. When she saw that there was no one around, she said, Let's find a place to talk. If someone accidentally overheard them, they would not be able to hide it. There were many places in the house where they could talk. They did not go too far and went directly to the study next door. Fuyun closed the door and made sure that no one would barge in. Only then did she feel relieved. When Siyu saw Fuyun's reaction, he found it funny and a smile flashed across his eyes. You already know, right? Fuyun's gaze was a little evasive. What? I don't know. Siyu did not allow her to evade and said firmly, You know? Fuyun was enlightened and blurted out, You deliberately let me hear it that day? Siyu admitted frankly, yes. He did let her hear it on purpose. Siyu did not look for her for so many days because he wanted to give her time to think about it and settle her thoughts. He knew human nature very well. If he told Fuyun such a shocking thing in person, she would be in a mess that day and the conversation would be unpleasant. Siyu was also worried that she would misunderstand, so he simply told her in this way to give her time to calm down. Siyu originally wanted to give her more time to think it through, but she had been avoiding him for the past 2 days. Siyu felt that he could not wait any longer and decided to lay his cards on the table. Fuyun was speechless. She opened her mouth and tried to use her luck. In the end, she could not say anything and only said gloomily, I don't want to know at all. Sorry, this is selfish of me. I want to accompany you and take care of you with a legitimate identity. Fuyun was speechless. If the child's father was a complete stranger, or if he did not speak so sincerely, Fuyun could throw a tantrum. However, after so many days, she really could not be angry at all. When did you know that when one is in the village? I knew it the moment I saw you. When Siyu said this, he looked a little sad. He recognized her at first glance, but she had never suspected him even after he had been around her for so long. Fuyun was not to blame. She was not in the mood to find out who he was. Moreover, it had been so many years. So you approached us back then because you wanted to snatch one away? After Fuyun was shocked by this melodramatic plot, her first reaction was that Siyu wanted to snatch one away from her. She knew that no matter how charming one was, she would not be able to make a best actor come to their house to be a bodyguard. He was even willing to be a stay-at-home dad to take care of the child. So it turned out that he had deliberately approached them. I didn't want to snatch you away. Siyu comforted her. Don't worry, I won't snatch Wenwen away from you. In this situation, even if he did not snatch her away, it was almost the same as snatching her away. Fu Yun thought about how much Wenwen liked Siyu. Anyone with a discerning eye would know that if Wenwen knew that they were still blood-related, she would definitely be happier and would not reject the role of a father. Even she could not bring herself to treat Siyu coldly. After all, he really took care of them a lot, and they usually got along very well. Even if she did not accept it, she could not stop Siyu from taking on the responsibility of taking care of the child. She also had to consider Wenwen's feelings. Scheming dog. He did it on purpose. Indeed, she was still too naive. Siyu saw Fu Yun's expression change and seemed to have thought of something. Siyu did not pursue the matter. Instead, he said, although I really want to reunite with Wenwen as soon as possible, you are the child's mother. I respect your decision. This meant that it was up to Fu Yun to decide when to tell Wenwen. However, Fu Yun did not feel happy at all. She did not know how to tell Wenwen about this. Although the little guy sometimes liked to play around like other children, he was like a little demon. Furthermore, she did not know where his hostility came from. In any case, he did not like the identity of a father. Fu Yun swore that she had never said anything to slander the identity of a father. However, Wenwen was very repulsed. Fu Yun also thought that someone in the village might have said something bad to Wenwen, causing him to have such an understanding. However, if Wenwen knew that his father was Siyu, perhaps he would not be repulsed? However, this was not just a simple reunion. There were many other things involved. Fu Yun looked at Siyu and asked, Mr. Yu, have you thought about the future? If you and Wenwen are reunited, what will happen in the future? You will have to marry and have children, right? At that time, won't Wenwen's identity be awkward? Fu Yun really did not want to associate those three words with Wenwen. That was her only treasure. Furthermore, it would be unfair to Siyu's future wife and children. Wouldn't their existence make them uncomfortable? What if the other party had evil intentions and felt that Wenwen's existence was an eyesore and wanted to do something to hurt Wenwen? Wouldn't it be impossible to guard against it? What if all your fans know about this? At that time, will Wenwen be hurt? Will your family accept Wenwen wholeheartedly without any ill feelings? Won't there be gossip? Fu Yun said that Wenwen might encounter a lot of things after the matter was made public. If something like that really happened, it would be better for them to live a peaceful life and pretend that their father never existed. They would completely bury this matter. After all, they were not greedy for Siyu's own things. Even though she knew that this was unrealistic, if Feng Shui already knew about this matter, it meant that soon, other people would also know about it. The more people knew, the more this secret would not be a secret. One day, it would spread to Wenwen's ears. Siyu said with certainty, I am the only child in my family. If my parents knew about Wenwen, they would be very happy to accept her. After all, he had not been close to women for so many years. His parents had long suspected that he was into men and did not have high hopes for him to marry a wife. They did not have high expectations for him and only hoped that he would have an heir. If they knew about the existence of Wenwen and Yun Ruo, they would definitely be happy to accept him. As for his other relatives, they could only suck up to Wenwen. Even if they had any opinions, they could only hold it in. If the gossip spread to the people involved, they would not be able to get any dividends. I will also take care of the fans. You don't have to worry. He did not care about fame. Besides, he already had the intention to leave the entertainment industry. It was only because he wanted to spend more time with Wenwen that he continued to stay. The fans' attitudes could never influence his thoughts. This was his personal matter. As for the future marriage and children you mentioned, Siyu's lips curved upwards. He looked into Fu Yun's eyes and did not allow her to avoid his gaze. He said word by word, I want to be a father and accompany Wenwen as she grows up. I also want to be a husband and take care of you. Fu Yun Ruo looked at Siyu in a daze and did not react for a long time. Siyu leaned closer to her and said in a low voice, My wife and children will only be you and Wenwen. Do you understand what I mean? This sentence had an impact on Fu Yun Ruo. It was the same as when she heard that Siyu was Wenwen's father. Fu Yun Ruo took a long time to digest the meaning of Siyu's words. At that moment, her heart was beating like a drum. After a long while, She swallowed her saliva and her throat was dry. Fu Yunruo said sincerely, Mr. Yu, you don't have to do this. Even if it's for one, it's not worth it for you to sacrifice yourself. Siyu raised his eyebrows. Do you think I'm someone who would sacrifice myself? Fu Yunruo. She could not understand the deeper meaning behind his words. Moreover, she did not know if Siyu was telling the truth. What if he wanted to do it so that he could openly snatch one? I don't know if you will. Fu Yunruo vowed and said firmly, Anyway, I won't. I won't joke about marriage. Although she had never thought of marriage, to her, marriage was sacred and could not be taken lightly. If two people who had no feelings for each other were tied together because of a child, it would be difficult for such a marriage to be happy. What if Siyu met someone he liked, or she fell in love with him one day? Wouldn't this marriage be a joke? Anyway, she could not accept an extramarital affair. If they divorced in the future, wouldn't it hurt one even more? Siyu Ruo. Was he not obvious enough? He did not want to marry her because he wanted to have a child. Siyu took 2 steps forward. When Fu Yunruo saw him approaching, she instinctively retreated and looked at him warily. You, what are you doing? Fu Yunruo retreated to the edge of the desk. Then, she could not retreat any further. Her waist was pressed against the edge of the desk and her upper body instinctively leaned back when Siyu came closer. Fu Yunruo's elbows were on the desk while Siyu's hands were on the desk and he hugged her. Fu Yunruo stuttered, I am warning you. Don't mess around. She would not fall for it. Siyu laughed softly and leaned closer to her. Ruruo, I like you. Fu Yunruo suddenly opened her eyes wide, her eyes crashing into his deep eyes. Her soul seemed to be sucked in, and she was in a trance for a moment. She was absent-minded, and her lips were pressed against a temperature that did not belong to her. Siyu did not scare her. He only kissed her lightly and then said again, Ruruo, I like you. His magnetic voice seemed to be electrifying. Fu Yunruo quivered and pushed him away fiercely. Then, she ran away to a safe distance. Fu Yunruo's thoughts were in a mess, but her face was calm. She bluffed and said fiercely, Mr. Yu, I can understand your feelings of wanting to acknowledge one. If you continue to provoke me like this, I will not let one acknowledge you. After saying that, Fu Yunruo opened the door and ran out. Siyu shouted, Ruruo. However, she did not stop. Instead, she ran even faster. She returned to her room and quickly locked the door. She felt her cheeks heat up. However, when she thought of his motive for doing this, it was as if a basin of cold water had been poured over her. Fu Yunruo thought that Siyu was too much. It was fine if he deliberately got close to them for one, but it was not right to provoke her because of this. No wonder he was always flirting with her. He must have wanted her to like him. Then, she would take the initiative to push one to his side. He would threaten him and use her as an excuse to climb up the social ladder. In the end, in order to please him, he would take the initiative to give up custody. This way, one would become his. Alright, maybe it was not that bad. However, he must have wanted to gain her favor so that she would not become an obstacle between Siyu and the child. He was too scheming. Fortunately, she did not fall for it. Chapter 83. Siyu didn't know which part of the problem went wrong. Everything was fine before. According to his expectations, Fu Yun would have accepted his confession and officially become a family of 3. Siyu had already thought of getting his assistant to find the most suitable places to hold a wedding in the world and get the world's top designers to start designing wedding gowns for Fu Yun to choose from. Wasn't this reaction wrong? Even if she didn't agree, it was because Fu Yun's feelings for him were above that of a friend and not a lover, right? Siyu felt that Fu Yun should have liked him. He looked at himself in the mirror. He was still so handsome that he could make people dizzy. He shouldn't have lost his charisma, right? So, where did the problem go wrong? Siyu was puzzled. He couldn't help but look at Fu Yun, but he received an unfriendly glare. From afar, he seemed to be able to hear her snort coldly. Siyu, one didn't know about the quarrel between the adults. Every day after he finished filming his scenes, he would happily run to Fu Yun's side. After hearing Fu Yun's praise, He would run to the director's side in satisfaction and sit on a small stool. He would seriously watch the veteran actors perform. The adults looked at his serious expression and his spirited eyes, which made their hearts soften. The director would explain to him from time to time. The little guy looked up at him with his chubby, white, and tender face. From time to time, he would look at him with his big, sparkling eyes. It made the director feel as if he had been injected with chicken blood. He didn't care if one understood him or not. One watched and listened attentively. The opportunity to observe the acting skills of veteran actors was hard to come by. Back then, when he made a name for himself, most of these popular celebrities had retired. He didn't have the opportunity to work together and observe them up close. Especially Siyu. He had the most scenes. Every time it was time for him to act, when one would be excited and his eyes would sparkle. Watching an actor's performance on screen was on a completely different level from watching it live. When Wen's acting skills were slowly honed after being in the entertainment industry for 20 years. Many of her specious experiences were based on years of intuition. Now that there were so many veteran actors, just a few words of advice from them would be enough to enlighten him. At this moment, there was a commotion outside the set. Two young men wearing thin vests came in with several large bags. A delicate-looking young lady walked in with a smile and said, "Our Miss Ruashua heard that Director Imo is filming here. What a coincidence. Our Miss is in the production team next door, so she specially asked us to send some gifts to everyone. I hope you don't mind." "It's Yun Xian's pastries," someone exclaimed. The crowd was in an uproar. Yun Xian's pastries were famous for being expensive, but they were equally famous for their deliciousness. Most people wouldn't be willing to spend about half a year's worth of savings to buy a box of pastries. Even if the rich wanted to buy it, they would have to line up and make an appointment to buy it. It was really generous of them to send 4 bags at once. Fu Yun raised an eyebrow. Did they do a favor to the production team next door? But she didn't say anything. Those ordinary extras and crew members were obviously very tempted by the rare delicacies. But how could those in the entertainment industry not pay attention to the gossip in the entertainment industry? They all had a good impression of Wan and her son, especially with the big Buddha, Siyu. Even if they were tempted, no one went up to talk to them. Instead, they just watched from the side. Yuan Xian happened to be in the production team. Seeing this, he said directly, "Look at your Miss Shuiru. She's really kind. She's not in the same production team, but she's so worried to send gifts. It's as if the big shots in our production team are insensible." Everyone in the industry knew that Siyu and Feng Shui had already shed all pretense of cordiality, so Yuan Xian's words were extremely rude. When some celebrities heard this, regardless of their status, they felt extremely uncomfortable. Great manager Yuan was right. It was as if they didn't know how to do things. They were in the same production team, but no one would be so generous to treat the production team members to something good. Only Fu Yun wanted them to take care of Wan and specially bought 2 days' worth of drinks for her. This Feng Shuiruo really stretched her hand too far. Feng Shui's assistant panicked for a moment, but then she calmed down and said, "How could that be? Our miss is just feeling that fate brought us together. She also regrets that she can't work with everyone. How can our small production team afford to hire someone like Best Actress Feng?" The person who said this was Feng Shui's nemesis, Xia Waning. She was an important supporting female character in this production team. Therefore, she didn't have any scruples when she spoke. Anyway, she had already offended them. She didn't care about adding another incident. The others didn't have that much confidence. At most, they remained silent. Although there were rumors that Feng Shui had been banned, a centipede wouldn't fall down even if it was dead. She still had the Chang family behind her, so not many people would dare to openly ridicule her. Before the other party was completely suppressed, no one would be stupid enough to offend her. Although they wouldn't do it openly, they might do it secretly. The assistant felt wronged and puzzled after being humiliated by the big manager and big shot celebrity. She couldn't help but look at the people around her. They all avoided her gaze. She didn't understand. This wasn't the first time they had sent things to the production team next door. When had they not accepted it happily before? Why couldn't they accept it this time? At this moment, Yuan Xin received a call. Okay, send it in directly. After he hung up, he said to the crowd, "What a coincidence. RCU told me 2 days ago to make an appointment for pastries and drinks from Yunxian. See, they've already been delivered." As soon as Yuan Xin finished speaking, several young men in uniforms walked in, each carrying 2 large bags. Someone recognized them as Yunxian's staff. 5 or 6 people came in at once, and it took them 3 trips to and fro before all the things were delivered. They looked at the table full of bags and were so shocked that they couldn't close their mouths for a long time. Compared to the 4 big bags that Feng Shui had asked people to send, it was really a small number. The production team screamed with joy. Among the things sent over, there were not only pastries, but also drinks for everyone. Everyone was so lively that it was as if they were celebrating the new year. "Thank you, Brother Yu. Brother Yu, you're the best. Brother Yu loves you." The assistant was instantly left out. She watched as people crowded around, and from time to time, she could hear exclamations. Her face turned green and white, and in the end, she left with her people. Now, she didn't know how to explain it to Miss Shuiru. The assistant returned to the production team next door with a bitter face. Feng Shui was sitting in her exclusive dressing room. "How is it?" Chapter 84. Feng Shui was now the female lead in a TV production that the Chang family and the company had invested in. Today's filming location was CU's film and television set. Although she still had resources, she knew that she could only be the female lead in a production that the Chang family had invested in. Other excellent resources had already been rejected. If she didn't have any more works to release, she would fade into the crowd. Feng Shui was a little flustered. She had never thought that she would have a day like this. Her agent had been going around trying to talk to her about resources, but she hadn't been able to get any. Therefore, after knowing that there was a heavyweight production team next door, Feng Shui thought of her previous methods to win people's hearts. She thought that Director Mo had once expressed his admiration for her in public. This time, she had asked her assistant to go over and remind Director Mo of her. Then, he would naturally connect with her, and she would be able to hint that she was willing to be a special guest in their production team. However, when she saw her assistant's ugly expression and the bags of things, Feng Shui's expression changed. The assistant said without confidence, "They didn't take." Seeing Feng Shui's cold expression, the assistant hurriedly explained, "See, you also ordered Yun Xin's pastries and drinks." The table was filled with pastries and drinks. Naturally, they didn't like what we gave them. They even mocked us. In order to prove that it wasn't her fault, the assistant hurriedly described everything that had happened to Feng Shui in detail. She even exaggerated the facts. Feng Shui's expression turned cold and she said, "I understand. You can leave now." "Oh," the assistant replied. She didn't leave immediately but said carefully, "Then those?" She was referring to the pastries that hadn't been sent out. "Take them out and distribute them to everyone." The assistant's eyes lit up. She hurriedly agreed and quickly left. Feng Shui was the only one left in the lounge. She angrily swept the cosmetics on the table and gritted her teeth. "See you." And Yun Xian. She had relied on the Chang family and the Fu family to buy 20 boxes. How could See You buy so many? Feng Shui suddenly thought of a problem that she had neglected before. Could it be that See You didn't come from an ordinary family? Who on earth was he? CU's production team had no idea what was going on in the production team next door, and they didn't want to know either. Everyone was glowing as if they were celebrating the new year. CU's best actor was really rich. Everyone had a drink and a portion of pastries. Everyone was beaming with joy. Yun Xin's food was expensive and delicious. A drink cost more than 4 digits, not to mention these pastries. However, the price was not in vain at all. These were simply the most delicious things they had ever eaten. Wan had also eaten Yun Xin's food before. Now that she saw it, she missed it very much and couldn't help but eat until her belly was round. CU's smile was natural. Seeing that both mother and son liked it, she said, "Let's go to Yun Xin some other day. Some drinks and pastries are not convenient to be sent out. Eating them in the shop is the freshest and most delicious." Wenwen had a greedy look on her face as she held her stomach and hurriedly nodded in agreement. The exquisite taste lingered between her lips and teeth. Fu Yun was also a little moved. However, when she met Siyu's smiling eyes, Fu Yun remembered that day. Fu Yun said politely, "Mr. Yu, you don't have to spend money. I'll take Wenwen to the shop to try it." Fu Yun saw Wen's greedy look and felt a little guilty. After coming to the capital, Fu Yun didn't have much time to take Wenwen out to eat, drink, and play. Perhaps on the weekends, she could take Wenwen around to broaden her horizons. Siyu smiled. "It's no trouble. It's my honor." Wenwen looked at the two adults. He tilted his head. "Did Mom and Uncle Yu quarrel?" Wenwen decisively hugged Fu Yun. She raised her fair little chubby face and said cutely, "Yes, I'll go with Mom." If Mom quarreled with someone else, he would undoubtedly stand on Mom's side. "See you, little brat. I doted on you for nothing." Fu Yun was very happy to be coaxed. She glanced at Siyu and couldn't help but look at her proudly. Look, her son was on her side. Siyu laughed. Yes, this brat was still useful. He could coax Ruoro. At around 4 in the afternoon, Fu Yun and Wenwen left the set on time to go home. Considering that when Wan was a child, his scenes were mostly arranged for the day. He rarely filmed at night. However, when the car drove out of the studio's underground garage, they were stopped by someone. Fu Yun initially thought that they were stopped by fans or reporters. She was nervous, but when she took a closer look, it wasn't the case at all. When Wen moved his little body and tried to stand up under the restraint of the seatbelt. "Mom, it's that woman." Fu Yun pressed his little body down. "What woman? You have to be polite when you speak. You have to call." She felt that no matter what Wenwen called the other party, one would be at a disadvantage. Fu Yun decided to skip this tangled topic. The person who stopped them came over and knocked on the window, wanting them to get out of the car. Fu Yun didn't care about what was happening outside. "Miss Fu, you see, let them leave. Don't delay my return home." The person who sent them back today was a bodyguard in a black suit. However, he wasn't alone. When he encountered someone blocking his way, he immediately made a call. Not long after, a few strong men in black came from both sides. In less than a minute, the road in front was cleared and the car drove away smoothly. Chapter 85. When tried his best to stand up. He twisted his small body and leaned against the back of the seat. He looked at the scene from the rearview mirror. The bodyguard in black stopped Feng Shui. From afar, he could see Feng Shui's livid face. He couldn't help but gloat. She probably rarely received such treatment, right? She was different from what he knew. Let's see if she can still be high and mighty in the future. When almost couldn't hold back his laughter. His chubby little but was suddenly slapped twice. "Don't be naughty. Hurry up and sit properly." When hurriedly covered his little butt and sat properly. Then, he protested to Fu Yun. "Mom, I've grown up. You can't spank my butt anymore." How embarrassing. Fu Yun pinched his chubby little face. "You're my son. Even if you're a few decades old, I'll still spank you but if you do something wrong." When heard this, he was stunned. His mother still wanted to spank him after he was a few decades old? His small mouth immediately pouted. Did he not want to lose face? He was already so old. Yet he still wanted to be spanked by his mother? However, when one glanced at Fu Yun, fine, she was his mother. He could only pamper her. When one sighed, it was really too difficult for him. Fu Yun didn't know what he was thinking. She was thinking about whether she should confess his background to Wenwen. She had a premonition that Feng Shuerua would not let the matter rest. When Feng Shuerua tried to make an issue out of this matter but was rebuked by her, she felt that Feng Shuerua might find the child one day and say something messy. Now that she knew that Feng Shui was in the production team next door, she was even more worried. However, she had previously sounded out that Wenwen didn't like the existence of the role of a father. Perhaps if she knew that it was Siyu, she would be happy to accept it? Fu Yun hesitated for a long time. In the end, she decided to confess to Wenwen personally. Since she couldn't hide it any longer, she might as well tell Wenwen in person. Wenwen did not know Fu Yun Rua's inner turmoil. After the car stopped in front of the house, He could not wait to get out of the car. Then, he held Fu Yunruo's hand and ran back. Mom, do your homework? He remembered that he hadn't finished his homework yet. He had to go to school tomorrow, so he had to finish it quickly. Otherwise, he wouldn't get the little red flower. Fu Yun saw that Wenwan was full of energy, so she put aside her emotions and settled Wenwan's homework and dinner first. After washing up at 9 o'clock, Fu Yun wanted to carry Wenwan to her room to sleep. Wenwan was a little shy. He had gotten used to sleeping alone not long after he arrived in the capital. Moreover, his mother had to coax him to sleep every night before leaving. Now that his mother wanted to be with him, his little face turned red, but he still happily accepted it. He missed his mother too. Lying on his mother's fragrant and soft bed, Wenwan couldn't help but roll around. Today, Wenwan was wearing a set of little raccoon pajamas. From afar, he looked like a chubby little raccoon rolling around on the bed. Fu Yunruo walked over with a smile and lay on the bed at the side. Then, she pulled the rolling Wenwan into her arms. Wenwan immediately lay down obediently at the side. From time to time, he would turn his head to look at Fu Yunruo and then laugh happily. Fu Yunruo was also infected by his happy mood. She couldn't help but ask, "Why are you so happy?" Wenwan twisted his little body. His little face was rosy as he said honestly, "I'm happy." Fu Yunruo played with Wenwan for a while before saying hesitantly, "Wenwan, Mom has something to tell you." Wenwan's eyes lit up. "What is it?" Wenwan thought to himself. Was his mother going to emphasize to him again that he shouldn't have any contact with Feng Shuiruo? He didn't want to, but they had all taken the initiative to look for him. He didn't know when he could completely ban Feng Shuiruo. Wenwan felt that as long as the Chang family and the Fu family protected her, it would be very difficult to ban her. Unless there was serious negative news about her, her company and the Chang family wouldn't give up on her so easily. Wenwan was short and couldn't do anything now. His mother didn't know how to use those tricks, so he could only let them jump around. Sigh. Forget it. As long as he could protect his mother, he could take the rest slowly. Fu Yunruo's heartbeat unconsciously quickened. In the end, she steeled her heart and said, "See you as your biological father." She struggled for a long time before finally saying this. Oh, it wasn't about that woman, Feng Shuiruo? Wenwan heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he realized what Fu Yunruo had said. He knew every word, but why couldn't he understand the combination? Wenwan stared blankly at Fu Yunruo. This matter is quite complicated. It's not that your father doesn't want you anymore. He didn't know about your existence in the past, but ever since he recognized you, he has been paying attention to you. See you, Ruo? Father? Wenwan had never thought that there would be a day when these two words would be equivalent. How was this possible? The idol he had admired for so many years was his biological father? Fu Yunruo's voice was still rambling on. In Wenwan's ears, it sounded far and near, drifting erratically. His eyes were staring straight ahead. His little mind was a mess, and he couldn't think at all. Except for that night's incident, Fu Yunruo told Wenwan everything. From an objective point of view, he didn't smear Siyu's name. After all, they didn't have much of a conflict. Fu Yunruo thought that Wenwan would be very happy after he reacted. After talking for a long time, he finally noticed that Wenwan was unusually silent. Wenwan, are you unhappy? Could it be that he still hadn't digested this explosive news? Mom, April Fool's Day is over. Wenwan's little expression was calm. I'm sorry, Wenwan. Mom only found out about this not too long ago. I definitely didn't mean to hide it from you, but what Mom said is the truth. Wenwan blinked. After a long time, his brain finally worked. Mom, does Uncle you want to be my stepfather? You're afraid that I won't accept it, so you told me that he's my biological father? Wenwan felt that this matter was too ridiculous. How could Siyu be his biological father? This was simply the biggest joke of the century. It was impossible. Anyone could be his biological father, but Siyu couldn't be his biological father. How was this possible? The most reasonable explanation Wenwan could think of was that his mother wanted to find him a stepfather while he was still young. She was afraid that he would be estranged from the newly formed family, so she said that he was their biological father. It's okay. I don't mind you finding me a stepfather, as long as he can take care of you for the rest of your life, Wenwen said seriously with a serious face. As long as you like it, I can accept it. So, don't use this absurd matter to deceive him. Fu Yun Ruo. How could she explain clearly that he was a biological father and not a stepfather? Chapter 86. When Wen's words were reasonable, and Fu Yun was almost led into a ditch. She thought that the adults were really telling a lie in order to successfully form a family. Fu Yun patted Wen's head. Wenwen, I know you are a smart child. Mother is telling the truth. Moreover, isn't it good to have a father who dotes on you? Fu Yun did not expect Wen's reaction. She thought that after Wenwen knew this fact, he would be very happy to accept it. After all, that was the person he liked and admired. What about Mother? Wenwen looked up at Fu Yun. Don't worry, he has no intention of separating us. We will still be like before. Nothing will change. It's just that you have an additional father to take care of you. Wenwen. He buried his head in Fu Yun's arms and did not speak. Wenwen? Fu Yun called out. When she did not get a response, she did not force it. Instead, she patted her back rhythmically. Wenwen closed his eyes. His expression was complicated and difficult to distinguish. How could he believe this? Siyu was his biological father? He tried to find a loophole, but his thoughts were in a mess. In the end, he could not resist his child's instincts and unknowingly fell asleep. The next morning, Wenwen woke up in a daze. With Fu Yun's help, he changed his clothes and woke up not long after. Wenwen washed up while thinking. He seemed to have had a dream last night. He dreamed that his mother said that Uncle Yu was his biological father. He thought seriously. Could it be that he dreamed of what he thought of during the day? He wanted Uncle Yu to be his father? Fu Yun saw that Wenwen was still a little dazed. After he was done, she held his hand and led him downstairs. Because they all woke up early and the kindergarten was not far away, they had plenty of time to eat breakfast and took their time. Fu Yun looked at Wenwen's expression and couldn't help but ask, Wenwen, what Mom told you last night, Wenwen? So it wasn't a dream last night? Wenwen chewed on the fragrant meat bun and instantly felt that it was tasteless. However, in the spirit of not wasting food, he still finished the rest of the buns. After one night, Wenwen was able to think. He found a new point of doubt. Mom, do you have any evidence for what you said last night? Evidence? Fu Yun was stunned for a moment before she reacted. No. She had heard everything from Siyu, so she believed him. Now that Wenwen said this, if Fu Yun thought about it, wasn't she being too hasty? She believed everything Siyu said. What if he was bluffing her? Fu Yun felt that she was too naive. Wenwen saw that Fu Yun didn't have any evidence to prove it, so he frowned. Mom, how can you prove that it's true? Fu Yun. Without any evidence, she felt a little guilty and lacked confidence. Mr. Yu doesn't have to lie to us. Wenwen shook his head and didn't continue asking. He felt that his mother was also confused, so he should communicate with Siyu directly. Wenwen thought about it. Recently, he had heard people joking that he and Uncle Yu were very similar. Wenwen thought that it was because he had unconsciously brought out some charm when he was filming. In addition, children instinctively imitated the words and actions of the adults they liked. Wenwen also realized that he usually unconsciously imitated Siyu. Although he consciously adjusted later on, perhaps someone had noticed it. Could it be that because of this, Siyu had the idea to make him his son and then lied to his mother? Wenwen was more willing to believe that this was the reason. He didn't want to equate Siyu with the role of a father. In his heart, his father was equivalent to a scumbag who tricked innocent girls and then abandoned them. Fu Yun couldn't win against Wenwen, so she skipped this topic. She felt that it was better to let Siyu show evidence first. Otherwise, the little guy wouldn't be able to believe it. Fu Yun saw that Wenwen had finished eating, so she took her small bag and went to school with Wenwen. When they walked out of the house, they coincidentally met Siyu again. This time, it was rare that Wenwen didn't take the initiative to greet him warmly. Instead, he turned his head and left the other party with the back of his head. Even if he didn't want to believe it, it still affected him. Wenwen was now busy going to school and couldn't be bothered with him. Of course, he was the only one who knew whether or not he was running away from the truth. See you? Question mark. How did he provoke this little ancestor again? Fu Yun saw Wenwen's attitude, so she couldn't ignore the other party's greeting. She could only help Wenwen respond. Morning. Siyu walked over and glanced at Wenwen. Then, he asked Fu Yun, "What's going on?" As a mother, her attitude towards him had changed 180 degrees, and as a son, he was also starting to give him attitude. Fu Yun didn't know where to start at that moment. Wenwen snorted at Siyu and pulled Fu Yun away. He didn't let Fu Yun talk to Siyu. "Mom, the car is here." Fu Yun followed the force and walked a few steps. The car stopped beside her. Wenwen hurriedly urged Fu Yun to get into the car. After the two of them got into the car quickly drove away. Siyu. Why did she treat him like a scourge? Fu Yun glanced at Wenwen. Didn't you say that you wanted to talk to him? Why did she suddenly not want to see him? Fu Yunrua looked at the person who was still standing by the side of the road from the rearview mirror. She thought to herself, it seemed that the many coincidental encounters in the past were all intentional. It was to pick up Wenwen in disguise and to spend more time with Wenwen. She knew it. How could there be so many coincidences in this world? Wenwen's little eyebrows were still furrowed. I'm busy with school. Let's talk when I'm free. Fu Yun. She didn't know why, but she suddenly pitied Siyu a little. Wenwen said sternly, "Before I talk to the other party, you can't have any contact with him." His mother's personality was too innocent. At this moment, he felt that Siyu had bad intentions towards his mother. Without him watching over her, what if his mother was fooled into believing him? Fu Yun. She couldn't help but laugh. Wenwen's little expression was really too cute. Wenwen was very dissatisfied. "Mom, don't laugh. I'm talking to you very seriously." Wenwen wanted her to have a proper attitude and not take his words to heart just because he was a child. "Okay, I was wrong." Fu Yun stopped smiling and tried to put on a very serious expression. Wenwen is right. Mom will listen to Wenwen. Wenwen saw that Fu Yun knew that she was wrong and changed her attitude. He nodded in satisfaction and then reminded her again worriedly. Even though Fu Yun's attitude was good, she was still worried until Wenwen entered the school. "You have to remember." Fu Yun. "I remember. I know what to do. Go to school in peace. Mom will come to pick you up in the afternoon." Wenwen followed the teacher into the school, looking back 3 times at every step. After Fu Yun sent her child to school, she went straight to the flower garden to work. She didn't expect Siyu to come over personally. Obviously, he couldn't sit still because of Wenwen's attitude in the morning. Everyone knew that Siyu and the Fu family had a close relationship. Hence, Siyu went straight to the flower garden without any obstruction and stood in front of Fu Yun. Fu Yun couldn't chase him out in front of Uncle Gua, so she led him to the living room of the building to receive him. Fu Yun didn't beat around the bush and said directly, "Last night, I told Wenwen." As for suspecting that he wanted to be a stepfather and wanted evidence, Fu Yun didn't say much. Instead, she said, "He said that he will talk to you when he has time." Siyu heard this and said, "I'm not asking him. I want to ask you. What do you think?" He had already confessed, but Fu Yun's attitude towards him was still distant. He didn't believe that he had lost his charm, but he couldn't guess her thoughts, so he could only ask her directly. Fu Yun. He wanted to lie to her again. She didn't answer but asked, "How do you know that Wenwen is your son? What if he isn't? Do you have evidence?" Siyu raised his eyebrows. "Isn't this a matter of course?" He said with certainty. "Besides me, you haven't had anyone else, right?" Fu Yun. Although it was the truth, when he said it, she felt very embarrassed and her face turned red. Siyu looked at her face. It was white with a tinge of red. It was so tempting that he couldn't help but want to take a bite to see if it was as delicious as he imagined, but he resisted. "I've only had you all this time." Fu Yun looked at him with distrust. She didn't believe him. No matter how clean he was, it had been 4 to 5 years and he didn't have anyone by his side. She didn't want to discuss this topic with Siyu, so she forcefully changed the topic. "Don't look for me in the near future, right?" When one repeatedly emphasized that before you come to a conclusion, I shouldn't have any contact with you. So, Fu Yun looked at Siyu and shrugged. You understand, right? She wanted to listen to her son. Siyu, this stupid kid. Chapter 87. I have to get busy. Regardless of what Siyu was thinking, Fu Yun tactfully asked him to leave. Although when one was not around, she had already promised Wen that she would not get close to Siyu, so she had to keep her promise. Otherwise, if the little guy got angry, it would be hard to coax him. I'll come and find you later. Siyu did not continue to pester them. He left the garden and got into a black limousine parked by the roadside. Siyu sat in the car and leaned against the back of the seat. He massaged his temples, feeling a headache coming on. Yuan Xian, who was sitting in the front seat, asked, How did the discussion go? Both of them are my ancestors. Siyu's tone was filled with sweet annoyance. After the little guy found out about the matter, he had treated him with disdain in the morning. This was also beyond Siyu's expectations. This was not what he had expected. Wasn't Wen happy to accept it? Even if he was uncomfortable, it would only last for a day or two. He would coax him, and it would be over. Who knew that he would reject him so much? He could even feel the little guy's hostility towards him. Were this mother and son pair born to be his nemesis? Didn't you ask for it? Yuan Xian gloated. He was so happy that he could eat 3 more bowls of rice when he saw Siyu, who had always been good at strategizing, stumble again and again. Finally, there was someone who could deal with this wretched man. Yuan Xian was in a good mood. He happily whistled as he drove to the set. Siyu frowned. Yuan Xian was too arrogant. Hence, he said, you don't have this month's bonus. The whistling stopped abruptly. Yuan Xian cursed silently. Wretched man. Siyu did not care about Yuan Xian's thoughts. He was thinking about what exactly had gone wrong. For a child, it would be easier to reject and accept a complete stranger as his biological father, right? He had spent so much effort communicating with Wen to deepen their relationship. He could clearly see Wen's dependence and admiration towards him. If he revealed their relationship now, Wen should be able to accept it more easily. Why was his attitude completely the opposite? Could he say that they were indeed mother and son? Their reactions were exactly the same. One was hostile, and the other was distant. This was not going according to his script at all. Could it be that he had done something wrong before? The car drove along the road in an orderly manner. After a moment of silence, Yuan Xian suddenly said, Siyu, let me say something as a bystander. Yuan Xian and Siyu had been partners for more than 10 years. In the end, he couldn't bear to see him enter a dead end alone. Even though he was amused to see him deal with Fu Yunrua and her son's matter with confidence, but not achieving the desired effect, they had been friends for so many years. He also hoped that the 3 of them could put aside their misunderstandings and become a true family. You can advance step by step in the business world. You can control a project from the start to the future as you wish, but you can't do that when it comes to relationships. The world of business is different from the world of relationships. You feel that you have paved the way, and they will naturally accept it happily. However, people's thoughts are the most uncontrollable. From another perspective, they might think that you are scheming and can even manipulate relationships. In the past, you treated them well with ulterior motives. Think about it. If a person tried his best to get close to you, and you accepted his existence, and he even became one of the most important people in your life, but in the end, you realized that he approached you with ulterior motives, wouldn't you feel betrayed? Would you feel that your trust and feelings in the past were a joke? It's not easy to build trust between 2 people, but it can collapse in an instant. I'm speaking from a neutral standpoint. You did not handle this matter properly. It's easy for people to misunderstand. So you could not deny that he approached her with ulterior motives. Even if he had put in his true feelings, he pondered for a moment and said, You have a bonus for this month? Yuan Xian was instantly delighted. Double? It seemed that his efforts were not in vain. Siyu laughed. You wish. Yuan Xian. Ha, he should not have said so much nonsense. He should have let him take more detours. Wen sat on a small chair with her elbows on the desk. She rested her chubby chin on her hand and looked melancholic. Behind her, a group of children were chasing each other and playing with each other happily. Teacher Sue and the lifestyle teacher looked at the children playing and then noticed Wen, who was sitting alone and seemed out of place. Teacher Sue walked over and asked gently, Wen, what's the matter? Are you not happy? Can you tell me about it? Wen glanced at Teacher Sue and shook his head. Teacher, I'm fine. How could he tell the teacher that dirty linen should not be aired in public? He did not have anyone to share this kind of thing with. Until now, he still felt that it was unreal and that this matter was ridiculous. If he really was, then what about his previous life? Why did he not appear in his life? Why did he not help his mother? What bothered him the most was why did he not appear even when his mother was no longer around? Wen's eyes were filled with confusion. He could not accept that the person he had always liked and admired was the scumbag that had been deeply ingrained in his mind. Even if they missed each other in their previous life, logically speaking, he could not blame him. Perhaps he did not know of their existence all these years. In this life, the trajectory of their lives had changed, which allowed them to cross paths and reunite. However, he still could not let go of this matter. He even felt wronged. Why did he not come to them in his previous life? Wen, come and play with us. Kong's sturdy little body pounced on Wen, almost pressing Wen to the ground. Teacher Sue hurriedly helped Kong up. Kong, you can't pounce on other children like this. You will get hurt, you know? Kong laughed a few times. His eyes turned, and then he stuffed the plastic golden cudgel in his hand into Wen's hand. Wen, let's fight monsters together. Lei squeezed over, holding a pink fairy magic wand in her hand. She pouted and said, Wen wants to be a fairy with me. Baer noticed when Wen sighed and hurriedly ran over, hugging Wen. I also want to be with Wen. The children quarreled over Wen again. Wen. It was not easy to coax this group of little sticky melons to play with him. How long did he have peace? Wasn't it 3 minutes? He just wanted to be a quiet and handsome man. Why was it so difficult? Teacher Sue looked at them with a smile. They would not stop this small quarrel. They only needed to pay attention to the propriety between the children. Sure enough, the children soon shook hands and pulled Wen to play together. Teacher Sue saw that although Wen would still play with the children, he would still be distracted from time to time, looking like he had something on his mind. Teacher Sue felt worried and hurriedly told Fu Yun about Wen's abnormal situation, so that she could pay attention to the child's situation. Wen was not in high spirits. After playing for a while, he left his friends behind and sat at the side to watch them play. Kong and the others played around Wen, then pulled Wen to play with blocks. Wen played 1 or 2 blocks, then watched them play. Wen sat quietly for a while and could not help but ask his friends, Kong, do you think it's good to have a father? Kong raised his head and said matter-of-factly, Of course it's good. My father is very good to me. Every day, he comes to pick me up and send me to school. At night, he tells me stories to coax me before I sleep. He even buys me a lot of toys. He was often beaten, but he was used to it. Being beaten on the butt did not hurt at all. Wen recalled Kong's father. He was tall and strong. If Kong did not say so, he would not be able to tell that their family's male family was the main family and female family. Lei said enviously, Your father is so good? My father is not good. He often goes on business trips. I can't see my father for a long time. I also want a father who can tell me stories. Dodo pouted with tears in her eyes. My father doesn't tell me stories, and he doesn't buy me toys. Kong's father was so good. Kong, I'll give you my father. Can you give me your father? Lei blinked, his big black eyes watery. I want it too. Baiduer sniffed and blinked at Kong with Bambi's eyes. I can't give my father to you. Kong thought about it and said generously, I can lend him to you, but remember to return it to me. Lei and Dodo cheered, and the 3 children hugged each other. Wen was speechless. She felt that if Kong really asked his father, There would be a lot of bamboo shoots fried with meat. 1-1. Is your father not good to you? I'll lend my father to you too. Kong Kong did not forget his favorite good friend. 1-1 was very touched, and then he refused. No need. He did not want a father at all, and he did not have a father. Kong Kong felt that 1-1 was shy. He patted his small chest and said, "Yes, Lele, Dodo, and the rest have agreed." After thinking about it, Kong Kong was rarely shy. He tugged at the corner of his shirt and said shyly, "You can lend your mother to me too." Wenwen's mother was so gentle and beautiful. He did not mind if his father exchanged with Wenwen's mother. 1-1. I refuse. He did not want to share his mother with others at all. Kong Kong opened his mouth and stared blankly at 1-1, as if he was frightened by his sudden loud voice. After a while, tears welled up in his eyes. Wah wah wah. You're fierce to me. You don't love me anymore. 1-1. As soon as they heard crying, the other children did not say anything and immediately howled. 1-1. The classroom was suddenly in chaos. In the end, it was 1-1 who coaxed Kong Kong. Kong Kong grabbed Wenwen's clothes and did not let go. He was even sobbing. Lele was also on the other side of 1-1, her small hands grabbing Wenwen's clothes. His back was occupied by Do and another delicate little boy's voice, and they stuck together tightly. 1-1 felt that he was almost out of breath. He looked up at the ceiling, his expression saying that he had nothing to live for. Why did he have to start this topic? He should not have asked. Wouldn't it be better if he just stayed quiet and did not talk? It was really too difficult for him. Chapter 88. After Fu Yun sent Siyu away, she was not in the mood to work. She almost knocked over a pot of orchid because she was absent-minded. Then, she was rudely chased out of the flower shed by Uncle Gua, who was afraid that she would do something to his precious baby. Fu Yun could only go outside to see if there was anything she needed help with. It was still early, and the flowers in the flower bed were in full bloom. They even attracted butterflies, adding a touch of light to the flower bed. Fu Yun walked around outside and saw that there was a photography studio here taking wedding photos for customers. They signed a contract with a photography studio and officially fulfilled the contract. Today, there was a pair of newlyweds who came to take photos. Fu Yun looked at the bride in a white wedding dress from afar. She smiled very happily as she took photos with the groom. Suddenly, a hint of envy appeared in her heart. Ever since she came here and met 1-1, she had never thought that there would be a day when she would put on a wedding dress. A figure suddenly flashed across her mind. Fu Yun suddenly shook her head and threw that figure away. Seriously, she was too affected by him. This was impossible. Yun. Just as she was in a daze, the bride noticed Fu Yun's existence. She lifted her skirt and ran towards her happily, while Sina nervously ran beside her. The bride stood in front of her, excited and nervous. Yun, I'm your fan. Fu Yun revealed a smile. Thank you for your love. Then, she said sincerely, congratulations. Happy wedding. May you be together for 100 years. Thank you. Thank you. The bride was so excited that her face turned red. The bride stood in front of Fu Yun. She seemed to have a lot to say, but her mind seemed to be blank. She could not say what she wanted to say. Fu Yun said, "Do you want an autograph?" Yes. I don't have a pen and paper now. Can I give it to you after I sign it? The bride nodded repeatedly. She had no objections at all. Then, she asked carefully, "Can I take a photo with you?" My pleasure. In the end, Fu Yun Ruo and the bride took a lot of photos with the help of professional photographers. If it wasn't for the bridegroom who was about to cry, the bride would have continued to take photos with Fu Yun Ruo. Fu Yun did not dare to stay any longer and quickly left. When the bride saw the photo with her idol in the camera, she laughed. She felt that she had reached the peak of her life. She was actually wearing a wedding dress to take a photo with her idol. This photo is so good. I want to hang it in my bedroom. The groom complained. What about me? The bride looked at him with disdain. In the end, under the bridegroom's tearful complaints, she reluctantly changed the location and hung it in the study. If Fu Yun returned to the inner circle this time, She was worried that she would meet fans again. Although her fans were very rational, the nearby fans would come here to try their luck when they were free to see if they could meet Fu Yun. She didn't come out often, only 3 or 4 times in total. The fans were anxiously waiting. Even if they guessed that she might be in a flower shed that was not allowed to enter, they did not make a fuss. After admiring the flowers, they would work harder next time. If they were lucky enough to meet her, they would just sign an autograph and take 2 photos before leaving in satisfaction. This time, because the other party was the bride, Fu Yun Ruo couldn't refuse. She didn't want to affect her good mood, so she took a longer photo shoot, mainly changing a few scenes. Just a moment ago, she was still regretting that she might not be able to take photos in a wedding dress, but now, she was accompanying the person in a wedding dress to take photos. Fu Yun Ruo instantly lost all her thoughts. She found an exquisite and beautiful notebook, wrote a top signature, and signed a few other autographs. Then, she asked Kiki to send it to them. The others also wanted to join in the fun and asked for autographs. Fu Yun Ruo noted down the number of autographs she wanted and sent them out when she had enough autographs. As she would meet fans from time to time, Fu Yun Ruo bought a few notebooks specially used for autographs. After that, she didn't go out and continued to take care of the flowers and plants. When she received the message from her teacher, she finally got rid of all distracting thoughts and focused on work. After Fu Yun Ruo thanked her teacher, she didn't have the mood to work and went to the school gate early to wait. Fu Yun Ruo thought that this matter would affect Wenwen so much. Was she too careless? Suddenly, she regretted telling Wenwen. She didn't know if it was right or wrong. Suddenly, there was a knock on the car window. Fu Yun Ruo looked up and saw a very familiar person standing outside the car. She rolled down the car window, and Siyu's face appeared in front of her. Fu Yun Ruo. Siyu supported himself with one hand on the car door and leaned forward slightly. Ruoru, aren't you on set? Why are you here? I've finished filming my scenes for today. Oh. I want to pick up Wenwen with you and go home. Siyu's posture was very low. His tone was completely asking for Fu Yun Ruo's opinion, as if he would respect her opinion and leave if she strongly objected. Can I get in the car? I just want to say a few words. Fu Yun Ruo was about to reject him when she noticed Qian Shengnan in the driver's seat. She hesitated for a moment. Siyu took Fu Yun Ruo's silence as consent. He opened the car door on the other side and got in. The weather had been getting hotter recently. Siyu stood outside for a while. When he opened the car door and got in, a wave of heat hit him in the face. Siyu had just sat down when a bouquet of yellow roses appeared in front of Fu Yun Ruo. I saw it on the way here, so I bought it. It's for you. Fu Yun Ruo looked down. The yellow roses matched with the other flowers. From a professional point of view, it was a perfect combination. Fu Yun Ruo's expression was complicated. I'm also in the flower industry. She had such a big garden of all kinds of flowers. Why would he give her a bouquet of flowers? Siyu said, the meaning is different. This is my gift to you. Fu Yun Ruo took a second look. Of course, she knew that the different colors of the flowers represented the language of flowers. Yellow roses represented an apology, and it was used between couples. This is not suitable. Fu Yun Ruo waved her hand to express her rejection. Siyu's voice suddenly became low. The people in the shop said that this bouquet of flowers is the most suitable for an apology. I just want to apologize to you. Can't you forgive me, Ruai? Fu Yun Ruo snatched the flowers away. Stop talking. Fu Yun Ruo was afraid that he would say something nonsense. Shengnan was still here. Siyu's lips curved slightly. Then, he quickly flattened and asked in a low voice, the driver sent me here and left. Can I take your car home? Fu Yun Ruo was speechless. She looked at Siyu's face. The words, give an inch and you want a mile, seemed to be engraved on it. It was very obvious. Fu Yun Ruo was silent. Wenwen will be unhappy if he sees you sitting here. Siyu Ruo was speechless. Didn't Wenwen say that he wants to talk to me? He'll have time after school, right? There was no way to refute this. Fu Yun Ruo lowered her head and did not say anything. She looked at her phone and chatted with her friends in the group. Although they did not gather often, Fuyun Ruo was already familiar with some of the big streamers on the platform and had a few good friends in the industry. Whenever they had time, they would appear in the group and talk about everything and gossip. Siyu Ruo kept looking at Fuyun Ruo. Then, he lowered his head and pressed on his phone screen for a while. Fuyun Ruo, who was chatting happily, suddenly received a new message. "Why are you ignoring me?" Then, he sent an aggrieved emoji. Fuyun Ruo was speechless. Fuyun Ruo could not help but glare at him. She had to be strict and not talk to Siyu. Thus, she pretended not to see it. Siyu sent a lot of emojis in a row. She did not know where he found them. They were very lifelike and very cute. Fuyun Ruo almost could not help but laugh out loud when she saw them. Fuyun Ruo could not help but send an emoji over as well. Then, Siyu sent even more emojis. After replying to one, there were two more. She had never lost in sending emojis. Thus, they started to fight with emojis. Until Qian Xingnan's voice sounded. "Yun Ruo, school is over." Fuyun Ruo looked up and out of the car window. Indeed, there were already teachers leading the children out of the school gate. Fuyun Ruo quickly got out of the car and did not forget to emphasize, "You're not allowed to come out." There were so many people outside. They would recognize Siyu the moment they saw him. He did not want to attract too much attention. Sigh, emojis were really poisonous. She did not want to pay attention to him at first, but she was too engrossed in the emojis and did not notice. Fuyun Ruo quickly took one back from the teacher. The little girl pulled Fuyun Ruo and could not wait to leave. Her eyes were still looking around vigilantly, afraid that Kong Kong or someone else would suddenly appear to snatch her mother away from her. Fuyun Ruo followed her while observing One. She still looked energetic. If the teacher had not mentioned it to her, she would not have known that the little girl was still affected in school. Fuyun Ruo opened the car door, carried Wen into the car, and then sat in. Wen turned her head to look behind. Only when Fuyun Ruo got into the car and closed the door and did not see anyone rush out to exchange their mother with him did he heave a sigh of relief. Then, he turned his head and suddenly saw the person he did not want to see sitting next to him. "Why are you here?" If she was not restrained by the seatbelt, Wen would have jumped and hit the roof of the car. Siyu's mouth twitched. Was he so invisible? Just as Fuyun Ruo fastened the seatbelt, Wen jumped and almost did not buckle it. She could not help but pat his little shoulder. "Don't move." Wen turned her head to look at Fuyun Ruo and said angrily, "Why is he here?" Fuyun Ruo said, "Didn't you want to talk to him? He happened to have time, so he came to pick you up." Wen was so angry that she slapped the cushion. "Just tell me a place and I'll go." She did not want him to pick her up. When she lowered her head, she saw a bouquet of flowers on the seat. "Who gave this to you?" Fuyun Ruo saw his intense reaction and did not dare to tell the truth. She said directly, "This is not my flower. It's his. It's not because he's so strong that there's no place for him to put it, so he put it here temporarily." With that said, Fuyun Ruo threw the flowers back into Siyu's arms. "All right, he took it himself. Mom won't help him put it back." Wen looked at Siyu critically and accepted Fuyun Ruo's explanation. "Siyu." He looked at this rascal and frowned. Why did he suddenly become so unadorable? Wen widened her eyes and stared back. She was like a little hedgehog with spikes all over her body. Fuyun Ruo saw this and quickly comforted her. "All right, Wen, don't be angry. It's Mom's lack of consideration. It's Mom's fault. She should have rejected him sternly just now. It's not Mom's fault." Wen glared at Siyu. It must be Siyu's fault. He was taking advantage of Mom's soft-hearted heart and pushing his luck. Wen was exasperated with his mother for failing to live up to his expectations. In the next moment, he felt that this person was too scheming. He always took advantage of when he was not around to coax his mother. Why did he admire? No, he did not admire or like this person in the past. He was too annoying. Wen. Siyu knew that he was in the wrong and softened his voice. "It's my fault. I should have asked for your opinion first." Humph. Wen turned her head and snorted through her nostrils. Fu Yunrua saw that Siyu was defeated. She had to admit that she was gloating in her heart. He deserved it. He had schemed so much and even plotted against her feelings, when one had really helped her vent her anger. Chapter 89. In the short 10-minute car ride, when Juan was like a little kitten baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, she used her cute appearance to pretend to be fierce, but in fact, she was not dangerous at all. In order to prevent the little kitten's fur from exploding, the target of the fierceness had to pretend to be afraid. As soon as the car stopped in front of the house, Wenwen immediately pushed Fu Yun into the house and looked at Siyu vigilantly from time to time. Fu Yun looked at the two of them and followed Wenwen into the house. Wenwen reminded her worriedly, "Mom, you can't come out and eavesdrop. This is a negotiation between us men. You can't eavesdrop." Fu Yun laughed and said, Okay, I won't eavesdrop." Fu Yun took advantage of the situation and entered the house. She looked behind the door and thought that Siyu should be able to coax Wenwen, right? Fu Yun was actually very curious about what Wenwen would say to Siyu. However, since she had already promised not to eavesdrop, she resisted the urge to peek at the door. Instead, she went back into the house and started cooking dinner. Wenwen put his hands on his hips. His hands were so chubby that they could not reach his waist. Hence, he changed his posture and looked up at Siyu. "If you have something to say it here." Siyu looked around and raised his eyebrows. "Are you sure?" Wenwen hesitated for a moment. There were people and cars on the roadside, so it was indeed not a good place to talk. "Hence," he said reluctantly, "let's go to your house." He took the lead and walked forward aggressively with his short legs. Siyu carried the flowers that she did not give out and walked behind him. Wenwen walked to the front door and looked up at the door that was not much different from his house. Siyu walked past him to open the door and walked in. Wenwen was very angry. In the past, she was very happy that they were fated to be neighbors. Now that she thought about it, he must have done it on purpose. He must have thought that the pavilion closest to the water would benefit first. He must have heard that they were moving here and secretly bought the house next door to create a coincidence. Wenwen walked in aggressively as if she was going to the battlefield. Due to the hot weather in the courtyard, Siyu got Wenwen's approval and moved the negotiation location inside the house. Wenwen was originally sitting on the sofa, but his small body did not look imposing, so he took off his shoes and stood on the sofa. At least the height difference was not that obvious. Siyu sat across Wenwen. There were a few plates of her favorite desserts on the table. Siyu had even made her a cup of nutritious fruit juice. "Are you hungry? They're all your favorites. Quick, try them." Siyu's house was always stocked with sugar-free but delicious snacks. She was just waiting for Wenwen to come over. Wenwen was disdainful. Was he someone who could be bought off so easily? Siyu didn't say much. The little girl was like a firecracker, ready to explode at the slightest provocation. He said gently, "Wenwen, what do you want to talk to me about? What evidence do you have to prove that I'm your son?" Wenwen's eyebrows were tightly knitted. He picked out the details. "My mother didn't know you in the past." He had reasons and evidence. Perhaps Siyu was taking the opportunity to trick his mother. He must have taken a liking to his mother, so he was using this opportunity to make use of him. There's a reason behind this. You'll know when you grow up. The child was still young, so Siyu didn't want to talk to him about adult matters. After all, he still wanted to save face. "I'm not a child anymore." Wenwen was unhappy. Adults always like to use this sentence to brush off children. He wouldn't be so easily fooled. His mother had been vague about some things last night, so he didn't know enough details. Thinking of this, Wenwen was once again annoyed at himself for not suspecting his own background. If he had found out that he had a relationship with the Fong family, or the Fu family, he would have been able to find some clues. But now, it was too late to say anything. Siyu comforted him. "It's very complicated. You're still a child, so you don't understand. When you grow up, you'll know. I don't mean to lie to you." Wenwen lowered his head and looked at his small body. In the end, he didn't pursue the matter. Even if they didn't say anything, he could guess. According to the rules of the entertainment industry, his mother was either drunk or drugged, and by a freak combination of factors, she was pregnant with him. Otherwise, how else could it be explained that his mother couldn't recognize Siyu? But Siyu could recognize his mother. He had pursued the matter just to confirm. His guess was ultimately just a guess. If you still don't believe me, Siyu thought for a moment and said, we can do a paternity test. A paternity test can be fake. Don't think that he was young. He knew a lot. Siyu, then what proof do you want? What proof do you have? This little brat was stubborn. When said with certainty, anyway, you can't be my father. I'm your father. No. Yes. The two of them quarreled like elementary school chickens. They only stopped when their mouths were dry. The two of them quieted down and looked at each other. Siyu picked up his fruit juice and drank half a glass. When lowered his head and looked at the fruit juice in front of him. In the end, he couldn't resist the temptation. He jumped down and stood on the floor. He picked up the glass on the glass table and gulped it down. However, he didn't have the slightest self-awareness. After burping, he climbed back onto the sofa and stood up high to continue the confrontation. Siyu said, how can you prove that I'm not your father? 1-1. One was eloquent. I don't look like you. I look like my mother. Yes, the son resembles the mother. But didn't you notice? When we look carefully, we also look a little alike. Everyone says so. You have to admit it. Although the little resemblance in appearance was covered up by his bulging baby fat and cute outline, he could still see some resemblance in his demeanor. When said self-righteously, that's because I imitated you, so my behavior is a little like yours. But this can't be used as proof. He was annoyed. Of all people to imitate, he had to imitate Siyu. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any resemblance at all. Neither of us can raise flowers. You and I are not the only ones who can't raise flowers. We eat grapes and don't spit out seeds. You and I are not the only ones. I'm very good at acting. You are also very talented. You and I are not the only ones who are talented. I like to eat fish and meat. I don't like to eat vegetables. Most children don't like to eat vegetables. Brat, don't you know that if there are too many coincidences, it's not a coincidence anymore? I also know that it was purposely set up. Siyu looked at when speechlessly. This brat was not easy to deal with. Siyu realized that he couldn't fool. No, he couldn't convince a child. The child's words were clear and logical, and he couldn't refute them. Thus, he used Wen's logic to refute. Then you can't convince me and prove that I'm not your father. The two of them stared at each other. Neither of them could convince the other, and in the end, they parted on bad terms. Wen ran home and disappeared in a gust of wind without looking back. Siyu followed behind and watched the child enter the house. After the door closed, he turned and went back into the house. Siyu sat on the sofa and stretched his limbs casually. He looked at the 2 plates of untouched desserts and put one in his mouth. After a while, he laughed and scolded, brat. He was quite smart. Wen ran home angrily. When he saw Fu Yun, he plunged into her arms and hugged her without saying a word. Fu Yun originally wanted to ask how the discussion went, but when she saw Wen's rosy lips pouting, she found it funny and said, did it not go well? Fu Yun didn't think that a 4-year-old child could have a good discussion, so she let him do whatever he wanted. She thought that Siyu would be able to coax Wen, but it seemed that he had angered him instead. Okay, let's not be angry. Fu Yun held Wen's hand and walked to the dining table. Look, Mommy made a lot of delicious food for you. Wen sniffed. He smelled his favorite sweet and sour pork ribs. Immediately, his eyes sparkled as he looked at Fu Yun. Fu Yun smiled and then brought Wen into the kitchen to wash his hands first before returning to the dining table. Wen sat on the child's chair and looked at the 4 dishes and 1 soup on the dining table. Three of the dishes were meat, and only 1 dish was vegetables. The soup was seaweed soup. Wen swallowed his saliva. His stomach said that he was very hungry and wanted to eat a lot of meat. Fu Yun gave Wen a piece of pork ribs. Wenwen happily picked it up and took a bite. Delicious. Mommy's sweet and sour pork ribs were the best. He quickly finished the first piece, and then Fu Yun gave him another piece. Wenwen had been so obedient recently. He had suffered a lot during filming and needed to eat more meat to nourish his body. Wenwen was about to eat the third piece of meat when Siyu's words suddenly rang in his mind. He suddenly froze. Fu Yun was originally smiling as she watched Wenwen eat the meat, but he suddenly stopped eating. She couldn't help but ask with concern, Wenwen, what's wrong? Wenwen put down the meat and said angrily, I don't like to eat meat anymore. I want to eat vegetables. He decided that from today onwards, he would change all the small habits that Siyu had. He would start by eating vegetables. Fu Yun immediately touched Wenwen's forehead worriedly. Could Wenwen be sick? He actually didn't want to eat meat and wanted to eat vegetables? Although he would only eat a few mouthfuls of vegetables a year ago when he had to be coaxed to eat vegetables, it was only in the past year that he took the initiative to eat even if he didn't like to eat. But after eating enough, he basically wouldn't eat more. Seeing him suddenly say this, Fu Yun was of course worried. She couldn't accurately feel his temperature with her hands, so she leaned over and touched his forehead. Yes, his temperature wasn't particularly high. It should be normal. Mommy, I'm fine. Then why don't you eat meat anymore? Of course, Wenwen wouldn't say that he wanted to change his habit that was the same as Siyu's. He rolled his eyes and found a reason. I want to lose weight. Fu Yun immediately poked his forehead. What do you mean by losing weight? Where are you fat? I think you want to be a stick. Wenwen lowered his head and looked at himself. He had a bulging watermelon belly, and his small arms and legs were very round. He pursed his lips. I'm fat everywhere. Nonsense, this isn't fat. Children are all like this. When you grow up, you will become skinny. Dodo isn't like this. He's too skinny. You can't learn from him. Think about it. Aren't you the most popular in class? Wenwen thought about it. That was right. This shows that you are the most likable. Don't you want to be the most handsome child in kindergarten? Wenwen. He hesitated. It was his nature to like being in the limelight. Of course, he wanted to be the most popular child. Then do you still want to lose this cute fat? Wenwen immediately shook his head. Fu Yun was satisfied. She picked up another piece of meat for him. Good boy. Wenwen continued to gnaw on the fragrant pork ribs. When his stomach became rounder, he realized that something was not right. He said that he wanted to lose weight was just an excuse when he touched his stomach and looked at the sky with a depressed expression. With his mother around, what could he do to change this habit? Chapter 90. Fu Yun Ruo didn't get the details of their conversation from Wenwen, but she got the general idea from Siyu that night. Fu Yun Ruo originally wanted to ignore Siyu so that Wenwen wouldn't explode when she found out. She also wanted to keep a distance. However, Siyu's message made her heart itch and she couldn't help but reply to the message. The conversation between the two of them revolved around who could convince who, and they actually talked for almost 2 hours. That was impressive. What surprised Fu Yun Ruo even more was that Siyu didn't manage to convince Wenwen. She didn't know why, but she suddenly felt very proud. Her Wenwen was so impressive. Siyu humbly asked Fu Yun Ruo for advice. What evidence should he provide to convince Wenwen? Fu Yun Ruo obviously wouldn't give him any advice. Instead, she replied, Wenwen repeatedly emphasized that this is a conversation between the two of you. You can't let me know. If Wenwen finds out, it wouldn't be as simple as just exploding. Siyu Ruo. There was silence on the other end for a while. Then, a voice message was sent. Ruo, I'm so sad. You want to burn the bridge after crossing the river. Siyu's voice sounded very aggrieved. Then, she sent a few pitiful emoticons. Fu Yun Ruo couldn't help but laugh. Then, she replied in a good mood. Depends on my mood. After laughing, Fu Yun Ruo was also thinking about this problem. Although a paternity test could be faked, this was the only evidence that could prove it. Fu Yun Ruo also wanted to see the results. Even though she knew that Siyu wouldn't lie to them with something that could be easily exposed, Fu Yunrua already believed that this matter was true. She just needed an authoritative proof. Hence, Fu Yunrua typed, "Let's do a paternity test." Okay. Early the next morning, Fu Yunrua consulted Wenwen first. Wenwen, I think it's better for you to do a paternity test. Regardless of whether you are related by blood or not, at least we have a basis, right? Right now, we're just talking about it verbally. Whether it's true or not, we don't have much confidence. Fu Yun also felt awkward. Her child was already so big. As a mother, she did not even know who the child's biological father was. She wanted to do this report not because she wanted to know about Bang Siyue, but because she wanted to figure it out. A paternity test is the most authoritative and effective way to identify whether two people are related by blood. Fu Yun was worried that Wenwen did not understand what a paternity test was, so she deliberately explained it to her. Wenwen said awkwardly, "The appraisal can also be faked." Fu Yun said casually, "I'll go to the hospital to do a DNA test. I guarantee that he won't touch it. Don't tell me that Wenwen doesn't trust Mother." Wenwen did not say anything. He said that he did not trust Mother, but in fact, he knew in his heart that Siyu would not interfere. In the end, Fu Yun trimmed Wenwen's fingernails as a sample. Then, she took the sample provided by Siyu and looked for her own connections. She had a senior's wife who was a doctor in the Imperial Capital Hospital. They had always been in contact and had a good relationship. When she went to ask her for help, the other party agreed without hesitation. Her senior even came over personally to get the sample, so Fu Yun did not have to make a special trip. Fu Yun asked them to keep it a secret and not let a second person see the whole process. After all, both parties' appraisal methods were too special. Once it was seen and spread, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. The appraisal report would not be out for a while. Fu Yun was also absent-minded when she was working. Even if she knew that the results were almost certain, she would still be affected. In the end, she forced herself not to think about it and used work to divert her attention. Wenwen was also affected. He knew in his heart that the appraisal report would be out in 2 or 3 days. He wanted to hurry up, but in the next moment, he guessed that there might be all kinds of accidents before the report was out. However, his attention was quickly diverted by other things. When Kong Kong saw Wenwen, he clung to him and looked aggrieved. "Wenwen, my father hit me again last night." Kong Kong touched Meaty's butt. "I told my father that I wanted to lend him out, so he hit me. Although it did not hurt, it did not affect him from asking Wenwen for consolation." Wenwen. He knew it. A meal of stir-fried pork with bamboo shoots was inevitable. Leilei's face was full of horror. "Your father hits children?" Kong Kong nodded. Yes. Leilei and Dodo subconsciously covered their little butts. Although their father did not spend much time with them and would not tell them stories, he would not hit them. Kong Kong said resolutely, "I won't lend him to you. It won't be good if he hits you. Just hit me alone." The two of them hurriedly nodded. They did not want him anymore. Kong Kong looked at Wenwen. His little expression was even more aggrieved, and he almost cried. "Wenwen, although I really want to exchange fathers with you. If father hits you, I'll bear it alone. I'm not afraid of being hit." Wenwen did not say anything. She touched his head with her little hand. Yes, it was better for her to bear the burden of her own father. Wenwen hoped that time would pass slowly, but it seemed that it had sped up during the day. School ended in an instant. He did not want his mother to see what was on his mind, so he pretended not to care. Fu Yun had already seen through it, but she pretended not to see it. She would make him busy so that she did not have time to think, and order him to help with this and that. At 8:30 p.m., Aunt May made a video call. Ever since Fu Yun and the others came to the capital, they still maintained a video call with Aunt May once a week. However, if Fu Yun called a lot, Aunt May and Uncle May were afraid of disturbing them, so they rarely took the initiative to call. Unless it was at a fixed time, if Fu Yun did not call in time, they would take the initiative to call. This time, Aunt May took the initiative to call. Fu Yun was surprised and quickly answered the call. "Aunt May, Ruarua, are you busy?" No. When one heard Grandma May's voice, she quickly grabbed Fu Yun's hand and stood on her tiptoes to take a look. Fu Yun fixed his phone on the low table in the living room and sat in front of the camera with Wen in his arms. Wen saw Grandma May's face and also appeared on camera. Only then did she calm down. Grandma May, Wen's voice sounded like it was mixed with sugar. Aunt May smiled like a flower. Hey, Wen, have you been good recently? Have you listened to Mom? I've been good. Grandma May, I miss you and Grandpa May so much. He also missed his underlings. Oh my God, we miss you too. The grandmother and granddaughter talked to each other for a long time before reluctantly stopping the topic. Fu Yun noticed Aunt May's expression. She did not look sad. Instead, she looked happy. It must be something good for her to take the initiative to contact him this time. Sure enough, after a while, Aunt May spoke. Ruo, I have good news for you. Aunt May beamed. She was in high spirits when there was good news. She looked a few years younger. Fu Yun asked curiously, what's the good news? Our village and the surrounding villages have been included in the plan to build beautiful villages. We will be building villas together. Fu Yun said happily, this is great news. And you don't have to worry about the quality. Everyone in our village will be watching. If the materials used are not good, we will not comply. After all, they were using their village's homestead. Whether it was new or old, they would all be demolished for the entire village's planning. There were a lot of wrangling involved in this, but it was temporarily settled. The entire village had signed the letter of intent. What we mean is, Ruarua, do you want one too? Everyone in our village treats you as a villager. If we allocate it to you for free, some people might feel uncomfortable. However, if you give the village some money, no one will have any objections. Friendship was one thing. When it came to benefits, Uncle May and Aunt May had to take the interests of the villagers into consideration. They could not be biased. Otherwise, the village would have objections. If it was just them, they would be happy to allocate a villa to Fu Yun. However, not everyone in the village treated Fu Yun so well that they did not care about their own interests. Sure, Aunt May, I'm willing. You have to help me say that I want it. The homestead in the village was not for sale. Fu Yun had lived there for so many years, but she could not buy a house that belonged to her. She did not expect that there would be an opportunity this time. Fu Yun naturally did not hesitate. Aunt May, I can't make things difficult for you. I'm already very happy to be able to become a part of the village. I'll give you as much as you want. Fu Yun said happily, can I give you 200,000 yuan first? Help me settle it first. I'll make up for the lack of money later. Her savings had just been cleared before the end of the year. Although she had made a lot of profits this year, she had to pay off the loan, Wen's tuition fees, and other miscellaneous expenses. She did not have much cash saved, so she could only take out this little. Fu Yun did not want to miss this opportunity, so she could only ask Uncle May and Aunt May to help settle it first. When Aunt May heard this, she immediately said, why do you need so much? Just give the village 50,000 yuan. Fu Yun was stunned. She could buy a villa with 50,000 yuan? The houses in the countryside are not worth much. 50,000 yuan is already a lot. If it were not for the sake of blocking the mouths of those gossiping people, she could have given less. In order to prevent Fu Yun from hearing any gossip in the future, she specially mentioned a little more. Those who had a homestead in the village would be given a house for free. Only Fu Yun would pay a huge sum of money, but no one would say anything when the time came. Fu Yun said worriedly, Aunt May, you can't specially reduce the price for me. It should be as much as it should be. Uncle May was the village chief. If his prestige decreased because of her, she would feel very guilty. I really didn't reduce it. You know the prices here. 50,000 yuan is already very expensive. Fu Yun thought about it. Indeed, the prices there were very cheap. It was not easy for ordinary people to save 4,000 to 5,000 yuan a year. The main reason was that there were no channels to earn money. She had lived in the capital for a long time and was affected by the high prices here. She did not expect that the situation there was different from the big cities. 200,000 yuan was not even enough for the down payment of a house in the big cities, let alone a villa. With this thought in mind, Fu Yun did not say anything. Aunt May, Then I'll transfer you 100,000 yuan first. I'll have to trouble you and Uncle May to help me. It would be best if we could be neighbors. Don't worry, we also hope to live closer. Aunt May, how are the two of you? You have to remember to do a full body checkup every year. Fu Yun reminded them worriedly. The elderly in the countryside basically did not have the concept of a full body checkup. They would only go to the clinic for minor illnesses and pains. In the eyes of the older generation, if their bodies could not take it, they would not go to the hospital, let alone go to the hospital for a full body checkup if they were not sick or in pain. However, regardless of whether they were young or old, it was good to go for a full body checkup every year. If they accidentally contracted any illness, they could be found and treated as soon as possible. Got it. Your Uncle May and I will remember to go. Aunt May had been instilled with so much by Fu Yun. How could she not take it seriously? You have to take good care of yourselves in the capital. Aunt May nagged. Fu Yun and Wenwen nodded repeatedly and responded from time to time. Then, they chatted about each other's recent situation. It was almost 9:30 p.m. before she reluctantly hung up the phone. Fu Yun said happily, "We are going to have our own house in Shangha Village." When they were in Shangha Village, they had always lived in Aunt May's old house. Although they were already very familiar with it and treated it as their other home, it was still rented and not their own. Now that they had something that completely belonged to their family, the meaning was different. Every time Fu Yun and Aunt May communicated, Aunt May would mention the changes in their hometown to her. Before she left, she heard that an inspection team had gone to their place to investigate. It was said that because the air quality there was excellent and contained some factors that were very good for the human body, they wanted to develop a 5S level leisure and retirement resort. Later on, good news came one after another. For example, they wanted to build an airport, investors and the government cooperated to promote the project, and many places were being planned. No matter how long it would take to realize it, as long as the project was not abandoned halfway, she could afford to wait for 20 to 30 years. When one was also very happy. He could go back often in the future. That place was going to be their home. The results of the appraisal report came earlier than Fu Yun had expected. The next afternoon, her senior brother personally sent the appraisal report over. Your senior sister-in-law personally handled the entire process. She didn't let a second person handle it, and the result is here. Her senior brother might have guessed something, but this was his junior sister's private matter. He wouldn't say much. If she needed his support, he would definitely not hesitate. Thank you, senior brother and sister-in-law. I've troubled you. You're welcome. Her senior brother smiled. We're very happy that you came to us for help. After exchanging a few pleasantries, her senior brother considerately gave Fu Yun some space and went to see her teacher. Fu Yun looked at the sealed document bag and felt a sense of homesickness. She could guess the result, but when it came to it, she didn't dare to look at the result. After an unknown period of mental preparation, Fu Yun took a deep breath and tore open the seal. She took out the paper inside. Seeing the results of the appraisal, the parent-child relationship was 999%. Although it was an expected result, Fu Yun suddenly felt that the dust had settled. It was really. Fu Yun put the document away and sat quietly for a while. Her mind was blank. After a while, she walked out. Her senior brother had already left. Only Uncle Gua was watering the orchids in the flower shed. Fu Yun looked around and then picked up a pair of scissors to trim the leaves. Uncle Gua noticed Fu Yun and asked casually, "What's going on between you and Siyu recently?" Although Uncle Gua rarely returned to the villa recently, he would quickly know if there was any trouble. It was quiet in the flower shed. After a while, Fu Yun said to Uncle Gua, "Uncle Gua, they are biological father and son." Uncle Gua was one of the closest people to Fu Yun other than Wenwen. He would find out sooner or later. Fu Yun couldn't continue to hide such a big matter from him. Now that the appraisal report was out, it was time to confess to Uncle Gua. Fu Yun's words were without rhyme or reason. When she wanted to add on, Uncle Gua had already nodded his head in understanding. Fu Yun saw that he wasn't surprised at all and asked doubtfully, "Uncle Gua, you already knew? You already knew? When did you find out? How did he know?" Fu Yun's face was full of question marks. Uncle Gua said, I didn't know. He just had such a guess previously. If a man inexplicably got close to an orphan and a widow and treated the mother and son well wholeheartedly, and this person obviously didn't have any improper thoughts about the adult at that time, eliminating this possibility, it meant that he had ulterior motives towards the child. And those who had ulterior motives towards an unfamiliar child, other than human traffickers, were related to the child by blood. Isn't this very obvious? Fu Yun. She was too naive at that time and didn't think too much, and she couldn't say why Uncle Gua didn't remind her. She felt that Uncle Gua would definitely scold her for being stupid. Uncle Gua frowned and asked, What's his plan now? Does he want the child back? Fu Yun shook her head. The child still belongs to me, but he wants to exercise his rights and obligations as a father and raise the child with me. If it weren't for the fact that Siyu didn't have any intention of snatching the child from her, Fu Yun wouldn't be so calm. What about you? Don't you intend to be responsible for you? Fu Yun quickly waved her hand. He doesn't need to be responsible. It was hard to tell the elders that it was a mistake and no one needed to be responsible for anyone. If they didn't have a child, then it would be a love affair. Uncle Gua frowned unhappily. He was so attentive to his Ruoruo just now. Was it just for the child? This relationship is unclear. Are you going to accept it when others criticize you in the future? Fu Yun scratched her face awkwardly. The situation here is more complicated. Anyway, Uncle Gua, don't worry. I won't be at a disadvantage. Why should I care? Fu Yun smiled and said, Besides, if I'm bullied, I still have Uncle Gua and so many seniors to stand up for me. I'm not afraid at all. Humph. Uncle Gua snorted coldly. By the way, Uncle Gua, Aunt May told me last night. Fu Yun quickly changed the topic. Uncle Gua didn't harp on it and changed the topic. His village was also under construction, so his share of the family would not be reduced. In the afternoon, Fu Yun took a document bag and went to fetch Wen home. In the car, she looked at Wen and wanted to say something but stopped. Wen's heart skipped a beat. She immediately guessed that the test results were out. Sure enough, when they reached home, Fu Yun took out the document bag and handed it to Wen. The results are out. The whole process was handled by someone trusted by your mother. No third person was involved. Wen's gaze drifted for a while before finally landing on the report in front of her. The person who supported Siyu was Fu Yun's biological father. Wen turned and ran upstairs. I will never admit it. Wen. Fu Yun chased after her for a few steps and ran up as well. Wen had already run into the room and locked the door. The solid evidence was out. Even if he was deceiving himself, Wen couldn't accept this fact. He couldn't get over the hurdle in his heart. Even though he knew that the trajectory of his previous life and this life were completely different, he still couldn't let go of it. He knew that he couldn't be blamed, however. If he really wanted to describe this feeling, it might be that he couldn't calm down. If he had appeared by their side in their previous life, would it not have been a tragedy? He only knew that his mother had passed away early in his previous life, but he didn't know what exactly happened. Fu Yun shouted a few times outside. She really didn't understand. She didn't know why they could get along so well when they were blood-related. After knowing that, Wen was so repulsed. She recalled that she really didn't instill in her child that his father was a bad person and that he was the one who abandoned him and his mother. She also beat around the bush. Auntie May said that she had been watching over the village, and no one said anything nonsense in front of Wen. If Fu Yun couldn't get Wen to come out, she stood outside the door worriedly. Not long after, her phone vibrated. Fu Yun looked down and saw that it was a message from Siyu. The production team is going to film a night scene. I won't be going back tonight. Fu Yun. What did it have to do with her whether he came back or not? He was just living next door. Even if he didn't come back for a week, she might not know. Moreover, they didn't have anything to do with each other. Why did he have to report his schedule to her? Could it be that he sent the wrong message? Hints, Fu Yun reminded him. Did you send the wrong message? No. Fu Yun looked at the document in her hand and thought for a while. She said, The test report is out. He was one of the parties involved. Since the results were out, he had to know about it. There was silence on the other side, and there was no reply. Fu Yun didn't care. Seeing that Wen was still inside and didn't come out, she decided to use her trump card. Boo-hoo. Wen, are you not going to see Mommy? Mommy is so sad, boo-hoo. Fu Yun had just cried for less than 40 seconds when the door was immediately opened. Mommy, don't cry. I didn't see Mommy. Fu Yun Ruo quickly hugged Wen, who was extremely anxious. Wen took a closer look. There were no tears in Fu Yun's eyes. He had been deceived. Fu Yun hugged Wen's soft body and threatened, "If you enter the house and lock the door again, I will really cry for you to see." Wen. Mommy is too evil. Fu Yun carried Wen and walked to the first floor. Wen hugged Fu Yun's neck and didn't move. He knew that he was quite heavy. If he moved, what if his mother hugged him tightly and the two of them fell? Fu Yun carried him to the sofa and sat him down. She tapped his little nose and said, "Don't run around." Wen didn't say anything. He was going to throw a tantrum. Qian Shengnan was already preparing dinner in the kitchen. Fu Yun took care of Wen and went into the kitchen to help. Tonight's dinner was relatively simple and was ready very quickly. Fu Yun called Wen, who was sitting at the small desk and doing homework, to have dinner. Just as she scooped the rice, she heard the doorbell ring. Fu Yun put down the bowl. "I'll go and take a look." Wen looked over warily. Her big eyes clearly said, "Is it Siyu? Don't open it." Fu Yun comforted her. "He has to film a night scene tonight. It's not him." Fu Yun walked out and clearly saw the person standing at the door on the surveillance screen at the entrance. It was Siyu. Fu Yun. She quickly glanced at Wen and then walked out. No matter what, she had to send him away first. Otherwise, if Wen found out, he would probably be so angry that he wouldn't be able to eat. Fu Yun went out to open the door and immediately said, "Don't you have to film a night scene?" Siyu said, "The report is out." When he heard the news, how could he be in the mood to film? He hurriedly rushed back. "Wen, do you believe me now?" Fu Yun couldn't help but ask, "Aren't you going to ask what the results are?" Siyu said with certainty, "It's obvious." "I know it must be." Fu Yun couldn't help but probe. "What if it's not?" "It's impossible." Fu Yun. "All right. Ruoruo, there's something I want to tell you." Fu Yun turned back to look at the door, afraid that Wen would run out. She hesitated for a moment. "It'll be quick. It won't take more than a few minutes." Siyu's voice had a pleading tone. "All right. This was not a good place to talk." Fu Yun was also afraid that Wen would run out and see Siyu, so she went to Siyu's courtyard. "What's the matter?" Fu Yun felt that she was a hypocrite. Every time she said that she wanted to keep a distance from Siyu, she still maintained contact with him. She suddenly realized a problem. With Wen as a bridge, she might not be able to completely draw a line with Siyu. "I'm very sorry," Siyu said directly. "When I first got close to you, I thought that if I could become friends with you and become close to you, you wouldn't be so against me when you found out about my identity in the future. After all, we wouldn't be strangers then. At first, I just wanted to fulfill my responsibility as a father so that you would be able to accept my existence in the future. Indeed, after I found out that Wen was my child, I approached you with ulterior motives. I apologize. It's my fault. It's my first time falling in love with someone. I don't have any experience. Yuan Xian is right. Feelings can't be calculated. Whether it's kinship or love, it's all my fault in the past. I'll work hard to be a good father and be a good husband." Fu Yun's expression was complicated. She wasn't a fool. How could she not tell if someone was sincere or not? It was because she knew that he truly loved and doted on Wen. If Fu Yun saw that Wen also liked him, she would turn a blind eye and ignore those unreasonable aspects. Deep in her heart, she also had a selfish side. Wen didn't have a father. She hoped that more people would like Wen and dote on Wen to make up for this gap. If she thought about it more, she would naturally be able to see Siyu's motive. If she wanted to blame someone, she could only blame herself. She was blind back then. Why didn't she think of taking a look? With Siyu's recognizable face, she would definitely be able to remember it with just one look. That way, there wouldn't be so many problems later on. It was true that Siyu had done something wrong, but she had also done something wrong. I also want to apologize to you for what happened that night. Although I was also drugged that day, I still had some rationality in the beginning. Siyu explained. Of course, it could also be because his body didn't reject Fu Yun, so he let his desires go. Otherwise, he wouldn't have lost control. But in the end, he was still wrong. When Fu Yun heard this, she suddenly asked worriedly, "Will this affect Wenwen's body?" Both parents had remnants of drugs in their bodies. Would it affect Wenwen's body? Back then, she was afraid that it would affect Wenwen's body. Every time she did a pregnancy checkup and a full body checkup after birth, she was scared that the doctor would say something wrong with the child. She had done a lot of research. When a mother was pregnant with a child after taking drugs, it was easy to give birth to a deformed child or affect the child's intelligence. She was only relieved when the child was completely fine. Now, another gene provider said that he was also drugged at that time. Fu Yun thought about it. Wenwen had always been much shorter than other children of the same age. She didn't even reach the standard height. Was it because of this? Oh my God. Could it be that Wenwen had dwarfism? Fu Yun was so anxious that she almost cried. See you. When he heard Fu Yun's worry, the corners of his mouth twitched. Our son looks like me. It'll be fine. Fu Yun's eyes were brimming with tears. Were you also this short when you were young? Yes, I'm this short. When you're 14 or 15 years old, your height will skyrocket. During the period when he grew the most, he seemed to be able to hear his bones cracking when he slept at night. However, there was a team of nutritionists at home. All aspects of nutrition were kept up, so there wasn't much discomfort. After Fu Yun heard this, she looked at Siyu's height of almost 1.9 meters and instantly felt relieved. She was worried and confused. In the original novel, Wenwen was also a tall and handsome man with long legs. How could he have dwarfism? Moreover, the doctor said that he was very healthy. Yes, Wenwen was a late bloomer. If you're really worried, you can do a full body checkup. Fu Yun nodded. Yes, she definitely had to do it. Other than this, don't you have anything else to say? Fu Yun blinked. What did she want to say? Siyu held his forehead. Forget it. He shouldn't have had any hope. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.